see those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-trucking down the road. Those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-looking for another load. Well, it's a family tradition, any Rocky Mountain day. Our fathers before us showed us the way. We work for asphalt cowboys and concrete kings, but that's never been a problem, cause we got diesel in our veins. We've got diesel in our veins. I see those big, bright, shiny.
What's up, JFW family? Welcome back to the Channel 23 podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to reach out and touch the fleet, to engage and inform everyone with all things JFW. Welcome back, Brother Jim, Brother Dave, Super Dave, and professional golfer, Troy Hill.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Troy, everybody. Do you play a lot of golf these days?
Morning. Not as much as I thought I would be playing.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is the year to get after it a little bit.
Okay. You guys will learn more about Troy as we go. He is not a professional golfer, but we'll get into that. Troy is a Navy vet, so Troy, if you want, you could kick us off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Happy to. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Troy, what'd you do in the Navy?
I was a signalman.
Okay.
Visual communications, flags, talking with my hands, and the lights. I don't even think that job's still there anymore. They don't do that anymore.
I don't know. When I was in the Coast Guard, we had signalmen as well.
It's a good spot to be.
But that was 20 years. Well, that was a long time ago.
I got you a little beat there. It was a good spot to be. Pretty small workspace, pretty small crew. Good rotation, 12 on, 12 off. So
nice.
Didn't work 3-section duty and wasn't walking around like a zombie by the 4th day.
Nice. And you did 4 years, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was on a destroyer out of Charleston.
Okay. And what was your thought process back then? Why didn't you make it a career?
When I got out of high school, there weren't a whole lot of jobs available that paid more than $3.35 an hour, which was federal minimum. I was working with my dad because we bought the company in my sophomore year. But I wanted to go out and get a little experience, and I didn't want him to pay for college. I wanted to do it on my own.
Gotcha.
So I went to the Navy so I could get the GI Bill, and then when I got back from the Navy, I worked with him full-time and went to college full-time at the same time for about
sweet.
4 years.
What college did you go to?
Went to Front Range and then transferred to Metro.
Gotcha. And what did you have a degree in?
Business.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for being the kind of people that made sacrifice worth it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to go out and do some trucking today. We pray for the safety of our fleet, all of their families, and all the other families and individuals we come across on the road today. We pray for patience and in making a good, safe decisions. We pray to be accident-free and that we all make it back to the comforts of our homes this evening. We pray for healing and 100% recovery for all of our family members that are ill, and no matter what, we trust you, God. It's in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Amen.
As a reminder, anything you hear on today's podcast is not the opinion of JFW's. It is just the men in this room's expressed opinion. Episode 124 had 505 downloads. We are at 69.1 thousand total downloads and have 558 followers. Big Country commented on last week's podcast. That was a podcast with JR and Scooby. And he said, great job, guys. Appreciate that, Big Country.
Yeah, that's one of my shout-outs when we get there. Jam was to JR and Scooby for filling in. Yeah, I think they did a great job. Yeah,
absolutely.
It was awesome.
I'm glad you listened. Brother Dave, did you listen?
I did. I liked the moment of silence during the prayer, and I'm thankful we don't have that this week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Last week was a rough week.
We took a lot of lumps last week.
Right.
So, yep, absolutely. All right, well, it's time for the Dad Joke Challenge. We usually let fresh meat go first. So, Troy, what do you got?
We were just on vacation, and somebody had changed all the buttons around in the elevator. That was wrong on so many levels.
Oh, man, that's a dad joke.
That's a good one. Super Dave?
Well, I don't know if this one's any good, but it sure made me chuckle. A little story joke here. So there was an old farmer. He walked into the hardware store and threw his brand new chainsaw down at the feet of the store owner. He said, "When you sold me this chainsaw, you said it would cut down 40 trees a day, but I can't cut down more than 3. The store owner said, "Well, let me sharpen the teeth and you can give it another try." 3 days later, the farmer returned, demanding his money back. "This saw is junk," he said. "I couldn't cut down more than 4 or 5 trees a day." Well, the store owner looked at the chainsaw and said that he needed to try it himself before he gave the farmer his money back. He then pulled the cord and the saw, and it roared to life on the very first pull. And the farmer looked startled and yelled at him, "What's that noise?"
I thought you were going to tell me the guy cut down 40 trees for the farmer.
What's that?
Oh, man. So this older couple gets in bed the other night, and the old guy climbs in bed, and the wife's already in bed. And just as he gets in bed, he farts. And his wife's like, "What is that?" And he goes, "That's football." He goes, "That's a touchdown and an extra point, 7-0. The wife looks at him and takes her a few minutes, and she squirms a little bit and lets out this little toot. And he's like, "What's that?" She goes, "That's a field goal." And he's like, "Okay, all right." So she really squiggles and does everything, and pretty soon a good fart comes out. And he's like, "What's that?" She goes, "That's a touchdown, extra point." She goes, 10-7. The old man, he kind of starts to sweat, and he works back and forth and turns red faced, and all of a sudden he just shits the bed. The wife looks at him and goes, "What's that?" He goes, "Halftime, trade sides."
That's good.
Wow. Well, since we have a petroleum guy here, I kind of threw a couple out. I think I like this first one. Did you guys know the government is starting a new health walking program? It's called gas, $6 a gallon. Right? And then did you guys hear about the lady having her car towed? The tow truck driver showed up, said, "Hey, what's going on? What's wrong with your car? Do you know?" And she goes, "No, I just thought it'd be cheaper to pay you than pay for gas."
All right.
That's funny. Good job. So, do you guys know what you call 2 black birds stuck together in a backyard?
No.
Velcros.
Velcros.
And then what do you call a car being driven by a sheep in a swimsuit?
Oh, man.
Sheepkini, I don't know.
Pretty good. A lamb bikini.
Lamborghini. That's funny.
Good job, guys. New employees, we got Hector Nunez, Kevin Webb, and Jose Podas.
Nice. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, welcome
guys.
to the
Glad
fleet.
to have you.
Celebrations, anniversaries. Man, John Dean hit 10 years this past Sunday.
Isn't that
Happy
awesome?
anniversary,
Big deal.
John.
Crazy.
Yep. Lexi Brown hits 2 years tomorrow, and then Dustin Romero hits 8 years tomorrow, and then Richard Brown hits 9 years this Saturday.
Wow.
Man, look at that.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, for all those people, it
Right.
just goes by so fast. I mean,
Right.
I had teased John the other day in the steering committee. I was like, "There's no way it's been 10 years." And then we talked about, Mick working here and all that kind of stuff. And John's like, "Yeah, Mick hired me." And I'm
Right.
like, wow.
Yeah.
So, crazy.
That's a good mark of a solid company is if you have most of your people that are tenured over 5, and then the 10. If you have any in the 15 to 20, longevity is really tough in a company. So
Right.
if you got people having those kind of anniversaries, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we believe it makes us safer, where we're not having those new people constantly come through. Somebody that's been here, 2, 3 years, 5 years is great. But it just helps with, obviously retention is cheaper than keep hiring people, and it makes us safer long term.
Absolutely.
That's it right there. You get some continuity of training, and training costs don't just eat you alive. It makes you more efficient.
So, absolutely.
Dustin's got to be close to getting back, too, isn't he?
We should probably call him.
We probably should.
Yeah, like we talked, he looked so good the other day when he was in.
Yeah,
Right.
I wonder how it's
Yeah,
going.
so you know, Troy, just to kind of brag on Dustin, he had some problems with his foot, and it wasn't healing, and he broke it and different stuff like that. Anyway, he ended up having to have his foot amputated, and he's come back from all that, and he had his prosthetic on the other day, and he's lost some weight. Not that he was really heavy, he even looks better. But yeah. for what the guy's been through in the last year, he's done good, Troy.
He's looking good.
Yeah.
He's never looked this good.
Thank God.
No, yeah.
Thank
yeah.
God
gotta
for automatic
agree with that.
transmissions.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah, he'll be back in the truck in no time.
I think it was the glow. You know what I mean? Like he was glowing when he came in.
Yeah, he was
No,
just
you're
as
right,
good to.
Jim.
From being,
That's it.
being in a wheelchair, because the healing process took a little bit. So he was a little bit down, being in that wheelchair for a while and not being able to get around without a bunch of help.
I've been there.
To be able to walk in here chest high and chin up, that was
He got his altitude back. It's
Yeah.
a big deal.
absolutely. What was your experience, Troy?
I had a compound fracture when I was in the service, and it took me 7 months. I laid in bed for 7 months, and then all the muscles had atrophied and had to come back. And
Were you just signaling people from your bed to come help you?
no, I was actually in a teaching hospital, so it was even worse. All the newbie corpsmen
yeah.
would come in every
Start
2
poking.
hours and use me as a dartboard, and then I went, no, just give it to me. I'll do it.
Instead of one doctor, you had 10.
Yeah,
Right.
That's
Well,
funny.
worse was the corpsman. Like,
Right.
They were learning how to do blood draws, and
Right.
no,
Here's
Yeah.
a new
it was
victim.
rough.
I've recently volunteered to be a IV patient, and they didn't get it either time. The second time, this person was kind of like, I'm watching, and they start like fishing almost. I'm like,
Sinking a dry well.
yeah. After a while, I'm just like, I think that's good for today. starting to sweat. Like, I was good at first.
It's like you can't see that vein right there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty vascular.
Got lots of it.
Yeah, you are, Jim.
But you appreciate like when you go to like give blood, or you actually
When
go
you
to
get a pro,
Yeah, and it just
Oh,
like
yeah.
boom. It's like, that's how you do it. Nah,
Yeah.
it's in there somewhere.
Quick story on that. I will never forget this. When Janet was pregnant with Sam, we were with Kaiser at the time, and she had to give blood, get some tests done or whatever, in the middle of the pregnancy. And Kaiser has all those little rooms, that you go into, and there's just like 4 rooms stacked up. And this phlebotomist comes in to take her blood, and she leans over and she gets the needle in, and she's talking to us. And as she's speaking to us, and the needle's hanging out of Janet's arm, her tongue piercing fell out of her mouth on Janet. And I'm like,
That's
that just happened.
that's not very professional.
Like, I was so caught off guard. I didn't even know to be pissed off. You know what I mean? Like, what?
that is a once in a
What
very
just
unique
happened?
situation.
As we commonly say, you can't make that
You
shit
can't.
up.
You can't, right, Dave? That's not a made up story. It
Wow.
happened.
What did Janet do? Pick it up and hand it to her?
Yeah, honestly, Jam, I don't even remember. I
That's
think we
funny.
all kind of maybe chuckled, actually, in the end, and left. And I don't know.
That's funny.
It just happened.
Birthdays. Jesse Baeza had a birthday on March 24th. He can't be 21 anymore. He's got to.
He's got to be close to 30.
Yeah, I was going to say 27, 28.
He was the baby. Well, no, Sergio Portillo was the baby for a while.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Jesse was also a baby for a while.
Sergio was so young when he hired on. I think he's at like
think-
6 years now or something. And he's
think-
only 25.
Right, exactly.
Jesse's come so far, though. I hadn't been around him for a while, and then they're at the function were we?
The Christmas party.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
year-end celebration.
I guess just to stand around and chat with him.
Yeah.
just felt like a whole different Jesse because he's been here so long. And just to see.
He's hardened.
Yeah, but kindly.
Yeah. Victor Saucedo. He has a birthday March 26th. That was yesterday. That was actually my mom's birthday as well. So happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Victor. Paul Chavez. He has a birthday coming up on the 30th. Happy birthday, Paul. And then family birthday celebrations. We got Benny's son, Christian Gonzalez. He also had a birthday March 26th. Gabe Colmonero's daughter, Ureni. She has a birthday tomorrow. And then Polo's daughter, Abigail, her birthday is also tomorrow. So happy birthday, everybody. And then I left it downstairs, but Benny sent us or brought in a very nice thank you card. He had lost his godmother and his aunt last week, and we sent him the wind chimes, which I actually got a set as well, which I'll get to in a minute. But very nice card from Benny and his family, so thank you for that. The wind chimes are awesome. They're like the wood chimes,
Have you hung them?
I haven't hung mine yet. I just haven't had the time. But my mom got hers. She's going to send something in. But yeah, she was like, oh, these are great. They're heavy duty. She was pretty
It's
happy.
a good idea. Every time you hear them go off, it's
Yeah.
somebody talking
Yeah,
to
we-
you.
Yeah.
Exactly, Troy.
Yeah, you
Great
guys
idea.
sent us when we lost Athena, our dog. Those are out front. They're the metal ones. And it's hard not to walk by if they're not singing to you to give them a little bump. You know what I mean?
We got some when Dutch passed, and every time I'm like, "Hi, Dutch."
Yep.
Wait for the mailman to come around, they'll go off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You guys buy your tires from Greg Brewer?
No.
Southern Tire?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Southern Tire. I
yeah.
didn't know that was Greg Brewery.
It was his birthday yesterday, too.
Oh,
Popular day, the 26th.
There you go. You know that's June, right? All the June weddings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout outs. Want to give a shout out to Marty Rios for stopping by the office. It was good to see him the other
I
day.
missed him.
Oh, man. You missed
He
a
looked
lot.
good, yeah.
Was Pepper wound up?
He
He was, yeah.
He was Pepper?
Yeah, he's just it's just refreshing because he gives hugs, and
Yeah.
how are you doing, and checks on you. And
Right.
he looked good. Yeah, it
Love
was
you,
nice.
brother.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
to see him. Yeah,
Yep.
yep,
Couple jokes, of course.
yeah.
And then we got a shout out from John Smith. He's actually a fan of the show, and he
Love fans.
He talked to JR. He needs to get a little bit more experience, but he wants to work here. So he sent me a message on Facebook. Said, "Morning JFW. Not sure if you do fan shout outs, but if you do, I'd like to shout out whoever is up here in Estes Park today." And that was yesterday. Just seen him on Mall Road, and I always got to wave to you guys when I see you. Have a blessed week, everyone. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I love when people that don't work here get involved with the podcast. It just feels
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
good. And then, Jim, do you have some shout outs?
I do. I'm going to leave this anonymous, and it's because I haven't had a chance to talk to the person that wrote into us. It is a shout out for Jam, JR, Kendrick, and Scooby also, though, in here. It's a shout out from this driver, and I just want to read it because it was very well written. And kind of the reason I'm leaving it anonymous until I talk to the person is it's so well written that, they've talked the talk and then you got to walk the walk. And it puts a lot of pressure on people when you talk about what you're going to do and then you have to do it. So it's a big mountain to climb, but it's really well written, you guys. So I wanted to make sure I read it. So, dear JFW leadership, when I started here at JFW in November, I was under the impression that I was a pretty elite driver. Over my 4 years behind the wheel, I have received a few accolades, had managed to avoid any accidents, and I was pretty confident in my driving skills. However, I quickly realized that my proficiencies were largely relative to the companies that employed me or that I had worked for. And I found that interesting because we talk about culture, and that's other companies' cultures. What's their bar, right?
Yeah, such a good point. Yeah.
And it was recognized right here. So I wanted to mention that. When I began my employment here at JFW, it took me a minute, but I soon realized that the goalposts had moved. And I took that, the goalposts had moved as we often talk that if you go someplace else, hopefully we've made you a better driver. Whatever your career path is, these are our standards, and when you go someplace else, you could be very successful. The drivers here are so good, the leadership so effective, the equipment top of the line, and all of these things didn't happen by mistake. The bar here is extremely high, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I began to notice that some of my own tendencies as a driver were simply not going to cut it. I have always been somewhat of a driven person, both personally and professionally, but my shortcomings became more obvious. There are so many things that we can't control in this industry. It is critical to be 100% on all things that we can be. I knew that my diligence on the details had to increase with regards to walking unsure ground, rolling down my windows while backing, pre and post tripping. In short, as my late father used to say, do the small things right and the big things will take care of themselves. And I just love that because how many times have we said it? It's Rick from MHC, the devil are in the details. Always, the devils are in the details. I think that the slogan, "Safety has no blind spots," says it all. I did suffer a few speed bumps, but I do learn from my mistakes, and the direction provided by Jam, JR, Kendrick, and Scooby, and Casey has been so valuable to me, and I like to give them a shout out and express my gratitude. The bar that has been set, the attitude of just do it the right way, put forth by JFW, has influenced my approach to the world, both professionally and personally. And Super Dave, you mentioned what a great comment. I think that's a great comment too, because I hope, listening to the podcast and we talk about it, high road hauling, different things like that, that take this into your personal life. What you do with your partner, your kids, somebody you meet in the elevator, it's important. So I really appreciate your patience and faith in me. I continue to strive to get diesel in my veins. Like the rest of you, and like JFW expects of its employees, I have never worked for such a special company, and I promise I will do everything in my power to be able to retire here a long time from now. And so for that driver, and next week, let me give a chance to talk to him, and I can mention him, but that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of good stuff right there, and
Good stuff.
and to you talk the talk, we got to walk the walk, and for all of us, we can learn from that. So thank you very much for the shout out and the letter. It was amazing.
Need to have him write for the podcast.
Right?
It was it was better written than I read it, probably.
I mean, every analogy he put in there, the comparison. I mean, just really good stuff.
What I really like about him writing that letter is he's not hiding.
Right.
No.
A lot of people
Jim.
will come in, and if they have some speed bumps, they want to just like fly under the radar and not bring any attention to themselves and just kind of be quiet and, disappear. We had that with people in his position before. So for him to, just have the balls to come up and write that and not hide, kudos to him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a good segue. Most people think the same thing about government. Keep your head down. Have them leave you alone. You
We're
don't
not
want to get
segueing
noticed.
yet. We're not.
But it's true. Troy.
Stretch it out.
It is. Yeah.
Especially
for
if
sure.
you're busy working with your head down.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
La 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 la.
I want to throw a quick shout out there to JR and Scooby for covering us for the podcast last week. I think you guys did an awesome job. Also, I want to throw out shout out to the CMCA Legislative Committee. I'm sure I'll leave half the names off here, but just right quick, some of the names that are almost at the table every day at those meetings, or every other Friday when we meet, and that committee's only in session while the government's in session down there at the Capitol. So, Greg Fulton, who's the president of the CMCA, Jeff Cummings, who's the chair, Barrett Jensen, Jim Coleman, of course, Troy Hill, who's here. Janice Hogue is always on those calls. I don't know Mark's last name from Michelin. I can't think of Mark's last name, but Mark's always there busting it. Eric Zubergen, who is our Flood and Pete rep.
Yeah.
And just a whole host of other people that really get behind the scenes and work to create the best outcomes.
Scott Hutchins
for
with
us.
Waste.
Yes, Scott Hutchins with Waste Management, right? Mm-hmm. Just a whole bunch of people there trying to get it done. That they're behind the scenes people that you don't know about. I've heard of the committee for years, and have the pleasure of being involved in it now, and it's not easy, fun work. So shout out to you guys. Appreciate all your work.
That's where the fur really flies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Any other shout outs? Got any shout outs, Troy?
I don't know if she'll hear it, but my daughter just made the golf team at Legacy, and it's a blast following her around and watch her compete.
Oh,
Nice.
that's great.
cool.
That's great. Yeah.
Legacy High School? Oh, very cool. Yeah. Didn't know you were up in that neck of the woods.
Just
Very
about
cool.
right across the street.
My son graduated from there last year.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great school.
You two golf together?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do now, yeah.
Who wins?
I destroy her.
Do you?
And I'm not going to let her beat me. She has to beat me fair and square.
I'm not that either. I mean, I just play Monopoly with my daughter, but there's no holds barred. I wear face paint and
Yeah.
there's walkout music and
When she beats me, she'll earn it.
I love that. Soup, any
I
shout
had to stop playing Monopoly with Janet and Sam.
Yeah, you
man.
told me she's vicious.
Oh, she's ruthless, buddy, and she teams up with Sam and calls it Omama Care instead of Obamacare. They crush me.
Oh, that's hilarious. Any other shout outs, guys?
No.
No?
I
All
don't
right.
have any.
All right. First topic of discussion. There is a travel advisory on East 54th Avenue at Franklin, and it's a 72-hour continuous closure March 27th today to March 29th. So be advised of a full 72-hour closure on 54th Avenue and Franklin Street. Already told you that part. The closure is necessary while Denver Water crews replace a Metro water line valve. Denver Water will notify any impacted customers of the potential for short-term water outages during this work. During the closure, all traffic will be detoured on West 54th Avenue to Washington, north to 58th, and east to Franklin. East 58th Avenue from Marion to Franklin, which is currently closed, will be open to eastbound only traffic for the 72-hour period to accommodate the closure of East 54th at Franklin. So this really affects the Plant 2 people.
Big time.
That whole area is taking a beat
it's-
around Franklin Plant. Oh my gosh! I mean, 58th has been closed for how long now?
Yeah, the
I
one
went-
lane, right?
I feel
Yeah.
like
Part of a year.
Man, I went to get dry ice for a hunting trip in October, and I mean, I was 2 minutes away from the dry. I went from the propane place, and it said like 2 minutes to the like 2 hours later, I got dry ice.
Right.
Like, what the heck?
Right. I mean, between 58th, all that jammed
Yeah.
up. Now 54th, and
Yep.
yeah.
Once the closure's up, 58th from Marion to Franklin will reclose to all through traffic for a water line, lowering work and the original detour route via 54th Avenue to Franklin. So, yeah, it's just a mess.
Yeah, that water line's probably 100 years old
Yep.
in that area.
Really be careful. Speeds are reduced to 35 miles an hour. You know, watch out for the workers. I did hear 2 workers recently, like this week, got hurt on one of the highways around here. 2 people.
Really?
Yeah, so definitely don't want to hear about those things. So just be really careful, guys. All right?
You done with that one?
I'm done with that one.
Before you go to the next one, also the Cloverleaf off of Vasquez getting onto 270 westbound.
Yep.
They're trying to repair that hole in the bridge the size of a small car. Thanks to Troy's buddy, Governor Polis,
Hey.
stealing half of those funds for 270. They're a little behind on repairs, but anyway, yeah, that is a mess. It is open, but to get on it, a tractor trailer is going to need both lanes because they actually have a stop sign. And the angle that you're forced on the highway at, you can't use your mirror, so you have to roll down your window and literally stick your head out the window to merge into that slow lane. And then because, I guess we're blessed, you could say that the bridge there happens to be wide enough that they just put an S in the road and they took both lanes and scooted them over to the shoulder. So you're getting on in that slow lane, but a tractor trailer is going to need to get on in both. It's going to require both lanes, fast and slow lanes. So I wouldn't go that way in a big truck, guys, if you're headed out to get on the road this morning or tomorrow morning. Hopefully it'll be fixed this weekend, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the north exit shut to where I like to get off to come through the back
Yes.
way. They had that shut this morning.
Maybe they're closing it at night or something, Jam, because Monday night I went home that way and it was open. And then when Jim and I came in Tuesday morning, it was closed.
Right.
Because I wanted to check it just to be sure. So
And last night it was open. People were getting
Was
past
it?
the barricades.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
went
Oh,
home.
yeah.
when we went home.
yeah,
So
it's
and
just not
that's-
safe.
Yeah, that's northbound Vasquez to go westbound 270.
Yes.
So Ace and I, we drove up to Loveland over the weekend to visit my mom.
How's she doing?
She's doing pretty good. Her sister's in town from Massachusetts, and my mom, she's like Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? She has her ups and downs, but all in all, she's doing okay.
Good.
But with Buc-ee's open, there was traffic from Berthoud to Johnstown.
Right.
You know what I mean? And at one point, I don't even think we were there yet, or maybe we were. And Ace says to me, "I don't understand why they don't widen these roads. We need wider roads." I'm like, "You should call Governor Polis because he stole $500 million. That was supposed to go to billion.
Yeah,
500
the B.
billion." I was like, "He stole them." She's like, "What do you mean he stole the money?" I'm like, "Babe, there was money set aside for roads and highways, and
Yeah.
He took it and he gave it to Immigration and Homeless, and she was like, "How can you do that?" I'm
Well,
like,
it was green energy, not
Yeah.
to correct you,
Whatever.
but
He repurposed it. He didn't
Yeah.
steal it, but
yeah.
how
he
is-
stole it, Dave. He stole it.
Repurposed.
It's called,
Did
it's called
Did you
reappropriation.
tell Ace that they just finished widening all that shit up there?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean that Berthoud exit, they got the traffic circles in there now. And
Yeah.
I want to know how many greenies went to Buc-ee's this last weekend since it opened.
It
That's
was
crazy.
insane.
Right?
Like
I've heard it was-
I want
it
to
was
go
crazy.
to try the brisket, but I'm gonna wait like 2 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Wait,
'cause
120 pump handles?
two
Is that what it is?
200.
220?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, talk about marketing and merchandising.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they basically
right.
adopted the Starbucks model. This isn't a gas station. This is entertainment.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it was lined up for miles.
Good for them, man. That's awesome.
JR did bring us some jerky, right? Because
He brought us some jerky.
He braved
Did
it.
he make it up there?
He did. He braved it. He said, I was too close, had to stop in. The jerky was really good, though.
Yeah,
I gotta
jerky was good.
Talk about marketing, right? When you have good products. Yeah.
And then Tracy, he brought in some of the Bucky nuggets.
Oh yeah, I've seen him. I've never had him.
Are those beaver balls? I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
Bucky the Beaver.
I was disappointed because when I hear nugget, I hear meat. And they're like a cheese puff. Not like a corn puff.
Oh, that's disappointing.
It was really disappointing.
I assumed the same thing, Jan.
Yeah, at one point somebody said, "Oh, they look like little cheese curds." So I'm thinking meat, cheese. And I get this thing; it's like a corn puff. I'm
Well, they're
like,
from Texas. They don't do chicken down there. It's all about beef.
"Did I say chicken?" All right, Rebel will be going to the new pit 14, which is Colorado Recycle south of Central Plant, and then Slurry from Plant 2 and 12 is going to be going to pit 11 or Brandon 28 off of County Road 8 east of Halliburton. Remember, when loading slurry, ask the loader to put a base of Rebel first so the slurry comes out better. And that's from Linda.
yeah. With all that, Jam, I just wanted to throw out there, just please pay attention to your Toro's dispatch, the company radio, because all of that has changed so much in the last, I don't know, couple of months here.
Yeah, 60 days for sure.
And it wouldn't surprise me that all changes again. They'll either get full or get behind or crushing. So just please pay attention to dispatch basically. I know we've been trading, Wallstrom, and then you go to Morton, and then we've been hauling out a Fairplay down to Plant 13, all of that. We've got a lot of changes. The powder, I don't even know how Rob and the powder guys keep up with where the powder's coming from.
Right.
It's been crazy. So, and I know dispatch is trying to, send out messages, talk on the company radio and everything, but everybody just be vigilant about, when you get assigned a load, double check it, and don't be embarrassed. Just call in on the company radio. I mean, I'd rather have you ask the dumbest question on the company radio instead of haul the wrong material.
Yeah, there's probably 10 people thinking the same question.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's a tip for everybody: when you see the message on your Paycom, write it down.
Yeah.
So you can look at it later.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Just make
Just
sure
doesn't
you're.
disappear into your
Yep.
emails.
Yeah, and just a tip on that slurry for the rock trailers hauling that. Keep in mind that's not water. Slurry is not water. We don't haul water in
not
our
supposed to be.
trailers, right? And we've ran into that. We've had
Yeah.
new loader operators, and sometimes our operators don't know the difference, right? And they're just sitting there loading what they think they're supposed to get. And do not let them load water on that rock trailer. It is not made for it. When we stop, it's going to slosh. We're going to have a cleanup on aisle I-25 or something. It's not going to be pretty. So that slurry is just concrete that's not in chunks.
Yeah, I mean, typically it's from leftovers. They'll dump their leftovers or wash out into a pit.
Yeah.
All that settles down on the bottom, and they'll scoop it out with a loader. But they're supposed to let it dry out. Like when I was at AI, that stuff sat there until it was dry.
Right.
You didn't try to load that stuff
Exactly,
if
Jim.
it was wet. So, yeah. All right. Well, we do have Troy Hill in the house. Troy was the owner of Hill Petroleum for 40 years. Is that correct, Troy?
Yep, and my dad.
And you and your dad, okay. And then you sold to Synergy in November of 22. So this was a family business with just you and your dad?
Yeah.
Okay. And then how hard after 40 years was it to let go of that?
It was kind of two-faced. I had planned or prepared it for sale for a whole bunch of reasons. 5 years prior to, just seeing the writing on the wall with there wasn't any increase in demand in any segment of any product that we sold. Between that and the realities of the political attacks on that entire industry, and the overburdening regulatory and climate and just overburdening authority from the Department of Health or the people that are climate change panickers to environmental activists. And the last and biggest piece was that neither one of my kids was interested, and I didn't have the next generation to hand it off to. So my two options were to get a whole lot bigger, which meant going in a whole bunch of debt to make acquisitions, and the political and the financial climate just wasn't there to do that. So it just made more sense to, I mean, my only saving grace would have been, and we were pushing pretty hard for the Republicans to get the Senate in 2022. And, I'm a trust but verify kind of guy. So I had it set up either way. And I sold it 6 days after the Democrats took possession of the Senate and the State House.
Wow. What kind of company is Synergy?
Synergy is a family-owned house. His grandfather started exactly like my grandfather. They owned one gas station on a corner. My dad's dad was Sam Hill, and he was a Standard Oil Commission agent. Started right after World War II.
Wow. And
Standard Oil turned into what's called the Seven Sisters, which is Shell, Mobil, Chevron, Amoco, Conoco, all those guys. So when my grandfather died, my dad bought this place in Arvada. He was a Getty Skelly jobber. And I think the total first month we did a little under $50,000 in total revenue.
What's Getty Skelly?
Getty Skelly was a couple of old oil brands out of Oklahoma.
Gotcha.
And they got rolled up into Texaco and some others. It's weird. They made Standard Oil deregulate and split off in the Seven Sisters, and then you went to like 30 different oil brands, and now they've consolidated back to like another, 5 or 6.
Gotcha. Very interesting. And where is Synergy out of? Are they Colorado?
They're based out of Pocatello, so they're in a lot of things, not just petroleum. They're in Utah, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, Colorado.
Wow.
They're very well diversified into what they consider core essential things, right? So they're in student housing, they're in medical centers where they actually own the brick and mortar, and the doctors are employees. They own farms, they own fertilizer and seed companies. They're very well diversified.
Very interesting. And what's retired life been like for you? I see you golf.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you started doing?
It's no less busy. The only good thing is I get to choose what I want to work on. I don't have to put out fires on my desk and have somebody divert what I wanted to get done that day. I'm still involved in politics. Kind of once you're bitten by the bug, it's bad. It stays with you just because
Everybody's looking at me.
you signed on the line, Dave.
The bug bit him bad, Troy.
But isn't that the problem? The bug bites you?
That's what I was referring to earlier.
I'm only involved because the bug is biting us.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier. Most people just want to live their life and be left alone, right? Just whatever their version of happy is.
Very true.
And when government gets way too big and gets intrusive and decides that they know better than you do about how you should do certain things or what you should buy or where you should go or how you should do it, then it becomes a problem.
It's a problem.
And the oldest term in politics is either be at the table or you will be on the menu.
Right.
Ooh. Okay. I like
Ouch.
that. Well, what's your day-to-day look like?
Start a little later, knock off a little earlier. It's a little bit. It's about the same amount of busy. It's just that my expectations had to get adjusted. Right, I was used to getting like around here. You guys fight several whatever fire jumps on your desk right at that time, and you've got really good real-time information collected by your fire squad. Every time something comes up, you grab the experts in your business that know the best how to handle stuff like that. Certain people take it off and do their parts to it. Now it's like I went from real time, a pretty good fast cadence in the day, to I might hear something back from somebody in a couple of weeks, and it was never really cool. It kind of made me twitch to have just stacks of stuff on my desk. I couldn't do it, so I had to adjust my expectations and how rapidly people got back to me and how quickly things got off my desk, and I had to learn not to let it bother me.
Yep.
Well, you definitely had a lot going on. You are the former chairman of CWPMA, which is a Colorado Wyoming Petroleum Marketers Association. You're the former chairman of the board for the CMCA. You're a former chair of legislative committee for the CMCA, and you are honorary colonel for the Colorado State Patrol. So a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, all introduced to me by being on the board of directors through Motor Carriers, and for whatever reason, I didn't want to do the fundraising side. I didn't want to do the safety side because I had people that worked on the safety side, specialists in my business. So I kind of got attracted to the political side. Don't know if that was real healthy, but it did, and it interested me, and I kind of liked the tug of war. So I went down to the State House and got real familiar with the legislators and the people that are running the bills and what committees they were on. And the big part is you have to have met them in person enough for them to know you. If most of the legislation is unintended consequences, it's not specifically targeted at. Some of it is, but not all of it. And you have to have the relationship to be able to text the legislator and have them call you back, because being able to amend bad stuff out of bills is just as important as writing a bill specific to your industry.
Yeah, you must have rubbed elbows with some pretty interesting people throughout the years.
That's a true statement. Sometimes I need 3 showers.
And then how did you, since the CMCA is where you got started, how long ago did you start with those guys?
I've probably been seriously involved for over a decade. I was the chair in 2019 for the COVID year. And I think I was probably on Zooms with the Department of Health, the Governor's Office, City of Denver, State of Colorado, probably 17 hours a day with the mask stuff and how many people could be in your building. And they wanted our own people to be the check nurse, and they weren't trained for that. And it was a lot.
Interesting. How you didn't see anything over at Hill Petroleum as far as, did you guys get more work done during COVID? Because that's what happened here.
You know what? A lot of the, honestly, both at Motor Carriers and my place, things actually got a little easier. There wasn't enough, people weren't throwing as much crap on our plate. It just got down to the blocking and tackling of what we did without a bunch of extra noise. Motor Carriers was the same way too. Legislatively, we got a lot of stuff done that year that we would have never got done.
Interesting. Huh. Well, you're very active in legislative matters that affect our community, so much that you have a podcast coming out called Core Essentials. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Core Essentials comes from some of the work that my partner Jeff Cummings at Colorado Motor Carriers, he's the chair of the Ledge Committee, and then I was the chair over at Colorado Wyoming Petroleum Marketers. And those two organizations, from a legislation standpoint, just about 99% have common goals. So Greer Bailey over at Motor Carriers or over at Petroleum Marketers and Greg can pretty much kind of team up and musketeer most legislation. And it's a great benefit because they both know all the rule makers at all the state agencies, and they've got a very good reputation down at the Capitol. So they don't need the lobbyists to carry many of the messages. They can just go straight to them because they've got the legitimacy from having done it for so long. So not unlike you guys, we've noticed we've been getting our butts handed to us for a long time electorally. And the way they've done it is, I'll use the environmentalists for for an example, they've adopted the Musketeer philosophy as well. So they've gotten 5 or 6 or 7 different environmental organizations, and they put them under one umbrella, and then merged all their memberships. So if one of them has an issue with legislation, or one of them wants to write legislation, then the entire group supports it, and they all organize it through what's called a small donor committee. Small donor committee is a form of campaign contribution that most legislators really appeal to, and they like, because it's very small donations, even under the reportable limit. Most of the time they're like $5, but you can do it issue based, right? So they spool up their membership on a certain issue, and then they fire that out to all their membership, so the membership knows what's going on or is about to happen, and then their membership, if it's something that hits their hot button, then their membership fires off emails and calls and stuff to their legislators, and or they show up and testify at the State House. And it's been very effective. And then every legislative cycle that comes around, they've got a significant war chest to influence lawmakers, because as disgusting as it is, politics is money.
Yeah, it's all about the money.
So the podcast, so the small donor committee is called Rocky Mountain Core Industries. So the podcast is going to be called Core Essentials, because I didn't hang that label on us. The government during COVID hung the label Essentials on us. So when I'm talking to the people on the podcast, I'll be talking to the essentials, because that's what we are. We were the ones that kept things going when everybody else was ordering from Amazon and banging pots at 8 o'clock at night for the medical people.
Right. And when do you think you're going to launch Core Essentials?
Well, I'm learning a little bit today, so it's not going to be too far away. I'm gonna order the hardware, and probably in the next 30 days I'm gonna launch it.
Sweet.
I've got to get a little more updates on the website. It's already built. Has a couple informational pages, but our intention is to use the legislative committee while it's in session, because most of the time our membership base is working. When the environmentalists are sitting on their computers and reading environmental journals to figure out what beetle's going to die off in the next 10 years, our guys are actually getting up in the morning, going to work, and getting roads built and fuel hauled and getting the job done that keeps everybody working and moving and eating and sleeping. So it's the best way to communicate this to them, because they'll actually be able to consume the information either while they're working over their radio, or when they have time to do it. They're not going to sit down and read 300 emails.
Sure.
After they get off work, they go home to their families. So this will point them to that. And then all the content during the legislative session will come from the legislative committees of petroleum marketers and motor carriers. And we'll talk about what the issues are and who's running it and what our summary of it and what it's going to do to us.
Wow.
And then point them to that website where they can actually see the text of the bill, and we'll homogenize it for them in the form of a summary. There will be a map on there that shows every legislative district, so they can click on it and they'll know exactly who their congressperson is or their state senator is, and their contact information, and they can fire off their opinion and let them know whether they like it, dislike it, and if they're passionate about it, they can help us fight it by click the button and send us $5 to put in our war chest to do something about it. It gives them the opportunity, instead of being reactionary and find out what the legislature just did to them, instead of just having one time every 2 years to go pull a handle and that's the sum total of your participation in what they're doing to us. This gives them a little more mechanism to fight back and have a bigger voice than just doing that once every 2 years.
Sounds interesting.
There's all these groups out there, Jam, like Earth Justice, Social Justice, Environmental Justice. I mean, that's probably just to name a few. We need someone on our side representing our industries that is industrial justice, you know, to a degree. I mean, that's honestly where we're at. You talk to any legislator and all you hear is, I want clean air and I want clean water. Well, they've got it.
Yeah, that's a fallacy. And they've got... Environmentally, we're the cleanest country on the planet.
But it's easy to sell to the average person, right, Troy, is my point.
Sure, it guilts them into it.
It does.
Well, don't you want clean water?
Don't we have it?
Duh.
I-
Of course,
right?
of course I want clean water.
Yeah.
I guess
we
that's-
have it. What's your point?
That's
Oh,
my
it's not
point.
clean enough.
This is going to be designed to educate the person whose head is down, chopping wood, making money so their family can survive. Their kids are in school. Mom and dad are working their butts off, and they don't have time for this.
Right.
If it can be in a podcast that they can listen to, and we can share this with the Colorado Motor Carriers, we can share it with IPOC, the Industrial Property Owners, we can share it with the Colorado Contractors Association, the Hispanic Chamber of
Hispanic Contractors
yeah,
Association.
thank you. Hispanic Contractors Association, the Colorado Ready Mixed Association, the Colorado Sand and Gravel Association. If we can get, and that's just to name a few.
Colorado Oil and Gas.
Yeah, Colorado Oil and Gas, COGA. Thank you. I mean, that's the tip of the iceberg with these associations. When this goes out, we're going to share a link with every one of those associations so they can share it with their members. And the driving factor of this is to get 1 million people listening that can click a button and send something to the legislators and go, this isn't what I want.
Yeah.
I mean, 68% of Adams County supports oil and gas, yet our legislators have a bill in session right now that you guys did a great job on the podcast getting out last week, Jam. And I believe everyone here has almost signed it to the best of my knowledge. You guys did a great job fighting it. That's 10% of Colorado's GDP, the gross domestic profit for Colorado. And they want to end it in 5.5 years. Boof, just gone. Whose idea was that? It's certainly not our state's.
Right.
I know.
Say it, Troy. I say it all the time.
No, it's Governor Polis.
Absolutely.
He grew up in Boulder, and he used to have a Halloween party at his house, and it was the one time a year where he could pretend to be somebody else, and his mom and dad had built him a clubhouse, and they all came over and pretended to be other people for a day, his favorite day, and some guy put a pump jack within the field of view of that. And he's never in his life forgiven it.
Wow.
It was his vendetta. He was going to end oil and gas in this state.
Wow. I hadn't heard that story.
So when he was running for office the first time, Prop 112 was out, if you remember right. And he opposed 112 because it was right before his election, right? But Senate Bill 181 was already in his pocket.
Right.
And the reason he opposed 112 is because there was $9 million of opposition advertising about to hit the airwaves to oppose him as governor if he didn't oppose 112.
Oh, wow.
So he opposed 112, got elected, and before the inaugural ball, they had Senate Bill 1 written, which did all the setbacks and put together the Oil and Gas Commission that basically decimated probably better than 75% of production oil field up there. And then these same people whine and complain when they don't have budgets for their school and fire departments. Well, you eliminate a $40 billion a year revenue enterprise.
Right.
We're not Long Beach. We don't have a deep water port. There's no other industry we can bring into Colorado that's going to equal $40 billion.
Right.
And if you know the 5-year swing on wells, year one they produce the most, and it's a declining scale. Mm-hmm. All of the wells that were on state ground, those royalties were evenly split amongst every school district in the state. So when those royalties declined and eventually disappeared, that's why they're pulling their Tabor games now, because all the funding dried up from the funding source that they had.
Wow.
But the average person doesn't know that.
That's why we need to do this.
Absolutely.
Politically, we need to let them know, look, here's what it says, but here's what they're really trying to do.
Right.
Exactly, Troy. In your podcast, you're thinking once a week?
Yeah.
Is what you're going to do?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I just want to kind of address, so correct me if I'm wrong too, Troy, when you talk about the $5 and the war chest and stuff like that, that $5 is nothing in the big scheme of things because of the costs that things are now.
Yeah, I can give some examples of that pretty clearly.
Right. I mean, because I'll step out this way is as a Republican, we're pretty tight walleted, right? And we
want ROIs.
Yeah.
want
What's
returns
our
on our
return on our buck? You know what I mean?
I'll go further. I'll take that further. I would rather choose how to spend my money as opposed to letting somebody else how to choose to spend my money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm leading to is you're asking for money now. But the only way to fight this
Is money.
is money.
Is
and
money.
I want to spit that out that, cause there's probably a lot of our guys listening to this that are hurting, right?
Absolutely.
We've been a little slow. The prices you're paying, you're going to, I think you guys are going to address it. The new gas that's coming out this summer,
gas hits
all that
June
kind of
1st
stuff.
for the
It's
reformulation.
we have to do something. So, take the time to listen to Troy's podcast when it comes out, keep listening to our podcast, but we all have to get involved. It is time.
Yeah. I mean, core inflation just on, and
Yeah.
some of the little nuances that people hear, well, unemployment's down, to a 20 or 30 or 40 year low. Well, they don't measure unemployment the way they did when Carter was in.
Nope.
If they measured it the way they did back then, it would be closer to 15, 16% because they're not counting the people that aren't looking for jobs anymore.
Yes.
Because they're sitting on the couch getting the stimulus check. And inflation isn't measured the way it used to be either. It takes core goods off the table. So the inflation number you're hearing now doesn't have gas or groceries in it. So it's a fictitious BS number too.
Yes.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not measured the same way it used to be. That's why he's like, oh, the economy is great. And everybody else that's, buying groceries and spending $500 a week on groceries is going, man, what you're selling is not landing on the plate, man.
Right.
The economy is horrible.
Right.
Now do interest rates.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
And the thing is, Troy, I swear all of that is because of the governmental costs they've imposed on us because of greenhouse gas emissions, the cost of our trucks.
I got some
all of
numbers
their
for you.
legislation it's the primary cause of all of this.
Yeah, yeah. Progressives and, Democrats and socialists, they never met a dollar they didn't like, and they're pretty good about giving other people's money away.
Right.
The problem with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money,
Right.
and that's when things go pop.
But you talk about that story you just said of Polis. That's not an agenda that's good for the people.
That was an emotional response.
Yes.
It was not a legitimate. I mean, if he really cared, what governor purposely eliminates a $40 billion a year revenue industry?
Right.
Without the ability to replace it. All the tech jobs, and you can bring in as many chip manufacturers as you'd like. They're not going to hit $40 billion a year.
saw this quote yesterday. It says, "No society ever thrived because it had a large and growing class of parasites living off those who produce." Thomas Sowell.
Who said that?
Thomas Sowell?
Thomas Sowell. He was actually a civil rights realist, and he's the guy that every time somebody talks about reparations, he actually makes things very clear, and he's got the pedigree and the correct amount of melanin in his skin to be able to talk that way without getting attacked.
Sure.
He's one of the most studious people I've ever read.
Huh.
He's
I'm glad
really
you know who that was.
Yeah. One of the oil and gas bills that's out now, you guys probably already covered it based on what Dave just said, is 24-165, introduced by Dave's favorite senator, which is Kevin Priola, that switched teams recently. So this is probably the second nail in the coffin for oil field. It actually makes them shut down any pre-well production during the ozone attainment period. So if they're prepping to drill a well and they have not yet punched the hole, they have to stop until the attainment time frame is over, which is May to September. But there's a little bit more deadly stuff in this.
It's only work during the winter, just to clarify for that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it also targets off-road this time. It specifically exempts the holy grail of agriculture, but I promise you agriculture will be next. On-road emissions are not the largest emitter now from a transportation standpoint. Off-road emissions are. They're specifically attacking yellow iron construction equipment.
Wow.
Not that we have a affordable housing crisis in Denver or not, because entitlements now on a single-family home before you ever stick a shovel in to build the foundation is about $225,000 on a single-family home. You tell me how you're going to get an affordable house built. I can't build a tough shed with that and get affordable housing price.
Right.
And they're 2 years behind valuation, so they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. It's self-propelled on-road, and it limits to 25 horsepower or greater. What's coming next with this is the clean diesel, recycled reformulated diesel. Newsflash, they don't make that here. The only one that makes it is Sinclair Refinery up in Wyoming, and 100% of it goes to California to fulfill military and government contracts. They don't make this fuel here. It's here's the other nuance, and it goes along with reformulated gas. When a refinery goes to the point where they make a completely different gas, even if it's just for the 6 months of ozone season, they didn't build a new 500,000 gallon tank in the tank farm. So everybody's going to be using reformulated gas because they don't have a choice. They're not going to build storage for a second flavor of gas and refine it if they don't need to. The biggest problem with that is Suncor is the only refinery here. And they only provide about 55-60% of the fuel for Colorado. The other 45% comes from Wyoming, Nebraska, and other places by pipeline, Texas from pipeline. But none of those states have this severe category, and none of them are mandated to produce that fuel. So if they don't have to at the greater expense, they're not going to. So, reformulated gas, low estimate was 40 cents a gallon. We've had fuel shortages in the state every year with every gasoline, not just RFG.
Right.
So you can expect another 80 to 90 cents a gallon related to fuel shortages. So this isn't 40 cents a gallon. This is $1 to $1.40.
Yeah.
And the diesel that they're projecting here will easily ramp up everybody's diesel price well over $1 a gallon.
And then explain, since Suncor, Troy, obviously I had heard 30%, I believe you on the 45-50%. The other fuels or petroleums that are piped in here, even if they did create that reformulated gas, they can't pipe it because they have to close the pipeline, they have to clean it or clear it, right?
It's a different Reed vapor pressure gasoline.
Exactly. So I guess my point is, no one, even if they had the capability, they're not going to be piping it in here.
Truck and rail.
Exactly.
Truck and rail.
Yeah.
And to your point, there isn't any bit of research that demonstrates that reformulated gas reduces the emissions they're targeting at all at altitude, because they don't. And Governor Polis has even admitted that. He was actually opposed to the RFG thing, kind of wink, wink.
Yeah, theater.
Yeah, it was all political theater, just like property taxes. He was
absolutely.
He wants to bust Tabor. That is the Democratic holy grail.
It is
to bust Tabor.
Right.
It'll also impose idling limits and make everybody report on how many idle time. Geez, because we don't have PTOs on our trucks, right? And then owner-operators will have to compose an environmental budget of tons of greenhouse gases. You guys will have to fill out an environmental budget every year and send it to the Department of Health, and they'll enforce it. And the next and final dirty little secret of this part of the bill for Mr. Priola is he's got the CDOT supposed to compose a vehicle miles traveled plan during ozone attainment. What that really means is they want to impose some kind of restriction on the amount of miles that passenger cars actually drive during the oxy mandate season or the ozone season, and try to work. Basically, it's a way for them to throw more funding at buses and trains, but
that aren't full now.
Make no mistake,
they're barely 30%.
For a whole bunch of reasons.
Right.
We were talking a minute ago about Buc-ee's and the congestion on the highways. There's actually a policy, an internal policy at CDOT that said no new capacity projects will be built unless it is first originally planned as a managed lane. And if the engineers don't plan it as a managed lane, then they have to go through some disciplinary board at CDOT and explain why they didn't plan it as a managed lane. And in truth, that's double taxation. If you pay tax at the pump to use the roads, why do you have to pay a toll for the same road?
Thank you. I say that all the time, Troy. We're paying for that road with our license plates already.
With your excise taxes on fuel.
Absolutely.
For excise taxes, trucking specifically pays 60% of the cost for every road in the state. 60%. We're 13% of the usage.
Right.
Yeah, the numbers just don't lie.
They don't.
It just.
But the politicians do.
Yeah.
Troy, will your podcast be a membership-based affiliation?
It's going to be subscription based, just like, people can just hit the button and save the podcast. It'll be available. And then the website, the Core Industries website will be a subscription based too. So they'll be able to go in, put their email in, subscribe, and they'll get the bursts every time
Gotcha.
something happens to it. So they can at least, if they hear something during the day on the podcast that interests them, they can go to the website, see the actual bill text, see who the sponsors are, see if that's one of their legislators, and then they'll hear our summary, and then we'll likely drag the podcast link over to that so they can refresh the summary on that.
You say to see if it's one of our legislators. Do we have any legislators down there, Troy? We've got a couple.
There's a couple down there. All the Republicans, the minority leaders, solid. Lundin's really, really solid.
Course,
Jim Smallwood's solid. There's a couple moderate Democrats, not many. Rachel Zenzinger's pretty damn good. Shannon Byrd. Rachel Zenzinger's on the Joint Budget Committee. And Shannon Byrd is also on the House Budget Committee. Both of them are Shannon's the head of House Finance. And she calls me frequently and says, "What do you think about this?" I don't have to chase her. She asks me. And she'll always give me a justification for why she's making a decision one way or another, but she never fails to call me.
But when it comes to a vote, Troy, don't they vote party lines? No?
Shannon and Rachel don't. They vote their here's the ridiculousness of the legislature, whether it's the federal legislature or the House legislature. Do you know why they have leadership elections within the state house?
I honestly don't.
So they can wrap them into their own caucus and get them to do something, even if it's contrary to what their constituents want. And some of the best legislators I've ever heard constantly remind those legislators that nobody in this room voted for you. So don't get it twisted. The people in your district are the ones that voted for you, and you should rely on what they feel. I don't even care if you split it straight Democratic and go to just a one vote majority on your district, because then you're never ever violating what your district wanted to do, because after all, you're here to represent them. You don't know anybody in this state house a damn thing.
Good point.
I like that. Are there any other gas bills coming up that you want to discuss?
There are several, to be honest. I only pointed this one out. I didn't bring up any more on this. I can go further into reformulated gas and tell you where that came from. I know that's one thing you wanted me to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually did a little research on this, and I don't understand, because everything I was reading yesterday, it looked like Polis was against this.
He wanted you to make it look like he was against it. So the whole reformulated gas thing came from Governor Polis's first executive order was the EV mandate, like 3-4 days after he was in office. And then to put the pieces in motion for that, he needed to also get, it was about all wrapped up into climate, but he also was using every mechanism around him to support his agenda. So the next thing he went after the first thing he went after was the coal-fired power plants and mining, right? We all remember that?
Right.
So he convinced Xcel Energy to convert 2 of their coal-fired power plants to natural gas 30% before end of life on plants.
And Troy, sorry to interrupt you. Weren't those coal plants just redone? They were some of the cleanest coal plants in the nation at the time. They've just been redone.
Yeah, not only that, but like the United States has, from a density of coal, the cleanest coal on the planet.
Yeah.
So the emissions, Colorado, the United States has been reducing its carbon footprint since the 1970s. We are by far the cleanest nation on the planet. Let me preface it with this too. If this was really about emissions, they'd be talking about nuclear. This is not about emissions. They're very good about creating panic issues and selling fear politics. They create an issue that doesn't exist, that can never be solved, so it can be run on, fundraised on, and politicized for elections on forever until people say they've had enough. I'll give you 2 examples. The climate panic thing, which has no demonstrable, and the models that say it is are flawed, and institutional racism. Both of those things are things that don't exist. You can't prove that they exist, and
You can't.
therefore you can never solve it. So you can run on it perennially. It's a perfect round robin.
You said something earlier about 30% end of life. What does that mean?
So they shut the coal plants down that they had just redone 30% before their projected end of life cycle for coal. Okay, so it was like 10 years early.
Got it.
And Xcel said, "Fine, we'll play ball, but our shareholders will not pay for the conversion. It has to be paid for by the ratepayers, the people that pay their power bill. And any capital investment we make into our power plants, you have to guarantee no less than a 10% return on investment."
So technically, on any person here that has Xcel Energy, Jam, you're paying 2 mortgages.
Right.
You're paying the one for the refit of the coal that they ended early, plus the upfit for the gas. So we're paying 2 mortgages to Xcel Energy, which I'll let you clarify this, Troy, if I have any of it wrong. Polis handpicks the board for the PUC, which controls the pricing for Xcel Energy.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. Xcel Energy said the last thing we need to swing this deal is you have to guarantee us that the PUC will never contest a rate increase. There is no PUC. Xcel Energy is the PUC.
Wow.
There is no consumer protections for energy, electricity through the PUC anymore. That's the deal they made. And as soon as
Is that important to vote, Troy? I just got to.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
I just got to jump
A little
in.
bit.
Yeah, because what sticks in my head just now is a 10% return also.
Minimum.
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 Right? Minimum.
So
I mean,
all of their capital investments, even not related to gas, they're guaranteed a 10% or better return from the general fund.
yeah, man.
And if it's not from the general fund, they get to raise rates, and the PUC can't contest it. So the next part of the shoe that dropped was 2 weeks afterwards, they tested the waters and did a rate increase. 2 weeks afterwards. And then when they did their next rate increase, Xcel Energy announced a $100 million over 10 years kickback fund to the state of Colorado for electric cars.
Wow.
It's crony capitalism, just like immigration is, just like drug addiction and the zombie homeless camps downtown are, just like climate panic. They create a problem, and then with immigration right now, they've got a bunch of NGOs, non-government organizations, that are being paid to bring them through checkpoints up to the United States. And then when they're here, then a different NGO picks up the ball and houses them and feeds them and gives them new clothes and gives them a debit card. Those NGOs are making tens of millions of dollars, and they're all taxpayer money. It's basically taxpayer money laundering.
Wow.
And that goes for every one of those categories I just listed a minute ago.
How do you not get infuriated by all this?
Exactly
Jimmy?
right.
It's just like, who do we physically fight? That's what
Yeah, my job with the podcast is going to be to absolutely infuriate people.
You're doing a good job.
And if they get mad enough,
I'm fucking pissed.
if they get mad enough, I want them to go to the website and say, fight them,
Yeah.
get them.
Yeah, that's the point.
And,
yeah.
and I guess that was my point, Jim. When you guys say I was bit, I was attacked by the bug. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in any politics. I hate it. It's disgusting. Like you said, Troy, sometimes at the end of the day, you need 3 showers. After this, Jim and I meet with Steve Odorizio, a commissioner from Adams County.
Odo.
Yeah. And I'm just like, we're being stuck, forced, having to deal with these people to keep our business afloat, to keep it running. And it's awful. It doesn't feel good.
You remember when you asked me if it was that hard of a choice to sell my business? Wasn't that hard? So
Because it wasn't good business anymore.
it wasn't viable. It didn't. I
Yeah,
couldn't
it
see the
wasn't.
horizon anymore.
Yeah. And that's,
Troy, I'm sorry, Jim. With the Excel thing, are the smart meters, how did the whole smart meter changeover, does that play into all this stuff? Is that
Not
a
really.
scam
The
or-
smart reader. I really haven't dialed into the smart meter. Really, all the smart meter. I'm a pretty constitutional guy. I believe in the Bill of Rights, especially with technology. Like, I'm not crazy about anybody being able to control anything on my house other than me.
Right.
And the smart meter allows them to shut you off if they've got a certain amount of burden on your air conditioning and heater. I'll make that decision what my thermostat goes for that. Thanks.
Right.
Yep.
There's a backstory there. I can see it.
We've just all talked about it. It's just something else that they're just coming in and changing. They send you the notice, we're going to be in and do this, or otherwise this is what it's going to cost you monthly extra.
I don't believe they can force change it. I think all they can bill you for is the kilowatt hours and the gas.
Yeah, they can't. You're right. They can't force it, but here's your option. You're going to pay this a month.
Is what it is. It's better than giving somebody else control of your thermostat.
Yeah,
Keep
exactly.
your standard.
I had
meter.
to pay
Yeah.
not to change my house, like a one-time $150.
So did I.
Troy.
Yeah.
And then I've had to pay, I forget the extra amount per month. I don't remember. And I'm like, yeah. And
I
mean,
want to say
I
it was
had to-
$35 a month.
I had to argue with them like over 5 phone calls to not change that meter.
Yeah, mine was get out of my backyard or you're going to get close and personal
Yeah.
with my dog.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah. So one of your questions was, if you go back to so that was the tail end of the part where Xcel Energy was made exempt from consumer protections, and that all falls to the EV mandate. Now, at the same time, while our ozone or non-attainment area was happening, where they put the opacity meter testers in for reading the ozone, they picked the absolute worst days to measure it for the measurement metrics to go to the EPA so they could then set what this year's bar was. They waited till the fires were going on, till the one up at Fort Collins and the one at Grand Lake was going on. And that was the measurement day that they picked. So it would look severe, like we had degraded. And then we went in from maintenance to the severe category. And at the time, there was a Speaker of the House. Her name was Casey Becker. She's an environmental attorney from Boulder. She was just made Region 8 EPA director. And she ran with the ball and got the EPA to absolutely declare it severe. We tried all kinds of alternative stuff to avoid RFG, including, I call it the emissions cash for clunkers, where they got a little fund together to trade out an older truck that was newer than 2007 because 5% of the trucks on the road are responsible for 75 or 80% of the emissions. But here's the secret sauce, though. Because we live in a mountainous zone, there's a natural amount of ozone that comes from them bumps to the west of us. Over 80% of the ozone in this demographic in the Front Range Valley comes from natural sources. If humans didn't exist in Colorado, and humans didn't exist to the west of us, which were sources imported from west of us, fires or California or anything
Follow
like
the
that.
airstream.
If humans didn't exist, we still wouldn't meet the metric.
Huh.
And
Troy,
that's by design.
Yeah. Denver is a bowl.
Yeah.
Everything sits in the center of a bowl.
Yeah, the
right?
jet stream goes over it and creates a vacuum that goes like this over Denver.
Absolutely. They've been writing about the brown cloud. I did some research. They've been writing about the brown cloud
70s.
since 1889. They were talking about the brown cloud over Denver. 1889. We didn't have cars. That wasn't causing the ozone back then.
No, that's how they hooked onto the cow
Yeah.
farts. Yeah, problem. So just some nuances. Go ahead and ask your next question.
We just want to know more about, does the reformulated gas actually work at altitude?
No, it doesn't.
Why not?
There's no because it's the same reason. It's the same reason that our unleaded here is 85. Where unleaded in flat states starts at 87. Mm-hmm. It's a Reid vapor pressure thing. It has to do with how many atmospheres of oxygen you have where the natural induction of the car is taking the air in. You don't need that much octane here. That's why reformulated gas doesn't work here. Our reformulated gas just has different Reid vapor pressures. In other words, it atomizes at a different rate through the burn cycle. It's completely immaterial at altitude, at our altitude. It has zero effect. But that's their what peg do we pull out when they hit this limit? RFG. Yep, now we have to do that. It's just a canned response to something that's doesn't exist.
So I'm sure people went to Polis and said, hey, by the way, this gas isn't going to change anything here.
I spent a year at the Capitol with every legislator educating them. So did Greer Bailey. So did Greg Fulton. So did the API. So did everybody that would get in there that we hoped they would listen to. Didn't matter.
They don't care because of their agenda.
Well, I'll go one further. Casey Becker is now Region 8. And since they know that only 50% of the fuel in this state is supplied by the only one refinery here, they tried to enforce what's called a good neighbor provision, and they tried to force Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, and Nebraska into being required to use reformulated gas because they know that's where 45% of our fuel come from. They got a big, high, hard one for that from John Barrasso from Wyoming.
I bet.
But that's the games they're playing.
So, I mean, are we or Suncor, or are we going to be able to keep up with demand for the reformulated gas? Or
That's a great question.
I mean, what if there's none available?
So I know Suncor retrofit
That's
to,
the new
to
health
make
program.
to make RFG,
talked about.
but Suncor provides almost all of the fuel on the Western Slope via train to that to that little pipeline that's over there. We're still going to have to bring in 30 to 40%. This is Sinclair's largest pipeline in the country, Holly Frontier. So my answer is no, because we wouldn't be able, we couldn't supply 100% of our needs even when we didn't have RFG.
Right.
I mean, this is just playing itself out. You remember when Katrina hit Houston? And everybody was short, so everybody was trying to send fuel to Houston because they were out of fuel. Phoenix was absolutely prohibited from bringing any fuel into Phoenix because they had a boutique specification on fuel, and they were legally prohibited from using any other gas. So Phoenix ran dry until they declared an emergency. We're in the same spot.
Huh. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is like, well, there's no reformulated fuel. So what do we
And
do?
everybody knows what supply and demand does, right?
Right.
Ka-ching,
Drives it
prices
up.
go up.
Yep.
So here's why we need to educate the largest majority of anyone we can think of. Everybody at our level needs to understand what's happening, and they don't, Jim.
Right. They need to know it before it happens and not be
Absolutely.
reactive. They need to have a voice
Absolutely.
before these legislators vote on this brain damage.
You want to talk about the 400 new laws per year that we've been adding every decade?
Yeah, I'll put it in context. So I'm just going to do it from a fiscal budgetary standpoint because legislation means simply them taking money for new programs that people may or may not be wanting to be done. So here's the biggest point. The population in Colorado in 2013 was 5.2 million, and the state budget was $22.48 billion, which nets out to $4,300 per resident of Colorado. 10 years later, in 2023, the population was 5.8 million, which was less than a 10% increase. And the budget increased to $38.5 billion. That's 66.37%. So the budget increased 58% when the population only increased 9%.
Cost of living.
Numbers don't lie again.
Thank you, legislators.
Yeah.
So just in the last 8 years, you've had the privilege of paying almost $2,500 more. So because Boulder's running the legislature. We used to joke about Boulder running the legislature. Here's the other thing. In the last 5 to 7 years, me, Jeff Cummings, Janice, and a few others would sit around and say, I wonder how long ago California was where we're at right now. And whether a group of people sat around and said, man, we really better do something about this or our kids are not going to be able to grow up here. And did they try? Who knows? They didn't get the job done. So it's incumbent upon us. I mean, if you want your grandchildren and your kids and grandchildren to be able to afford to live and grow up where you're at, or if you don't want to be forced to relocate because there are intrusions not only on your checkbook but on your constitutionally protected freedoms, if you don't want that to happen to force you out, then the only solution is to fight like you're the third monkey up the ramp on the ark and it's starting to rain.
Yeah, what's crazy is so this isn't the only. So we're talking about oil and gas. We're talking about oil and gas, but I mean, this fight is with guns. Like
Everything.
everything is just so jacked up.
Parental rights in schools. They just passed a bill that if your kid wanted to change their name in the school, it required the school to call them that name, and the parents were not required or allowed to tell you about it.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
And like 30% of the legislators down there have been appointed. They were not even elected. They were appointed by a vacancy committee. And the two legislators that just sponsored the assault weapons bans, neither one of them were elected. They were appointed.
Right. Yeah. It's all jacked up. You can just picture it in school now. Bella, what do you want to be called? You could call me Lobster.
My daughter identifies as you have an A and you don't have to do any homework.
Right. Exactly. Like that.
Senate Bill 1 fiasco. That was the transportation bill. It did not have any bipartisan support because the Democrats were running the show. That's the first year they were 3D Democrat in the executive and both houses of the legislature. That was a transportation funding bill. They didn't even show the Republicans the bill. It was sponsored by Faith Winter and Matt Gray. Matt Gray's a rep out of Broomfield. Faith Winter is Westminster, North Westminster area. So they chose the motor carriers representation to be their bipartisan support. It wasn't a legislator that was a bipartisan support, just so they can say it was passed with bipartisan support. So ultimately, it was because if you go back a little further, and I learned this from the guy that was the president of Colorado Concern. He was the former Senate Majority Leader. His name is Mike Kopp. When he was in the Senate, the legislature defunded CDOT. In other words, none of the funds to operate CDOT came out of the general fund. They didn't have a dedicated funding source. The environmental or the civil engineering firm for the state of Colorado that built road and bridges did not have a funding source through the budget. So they constantly, anytime something came up, they would just have to steal it from the general fund and then move money around. They decided they needed a transportation funding bill to fund. So that total bill was $5.2 billion over 10 years. Almost 50% of it was taken from actual road and bridge building and moved to enterprise funds, all under the name of climate hysteria. One of them was a transit fund, one of them was a emissions, environmental, low-income justice fund, and blah, 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 blah. So $2.6 billion of a $5.2 billion 10-year transportation funding program went to anything but roads and bridges.
And they hid it, obviously, under the transportation fund.
Yeah,
They sold a bill of goods that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and the buzzwords you will hear all the time out of the legislature are fees and enterprise funds, because they can't call it a tax. Otherwise, that violates Tabor and has to be voted on. So it's, an enterprise fund by any other name is still a tax. But some legal eagle somewhere decided, no, it didn't quite fit the definition. So that's how they tax you without being called a tax. And that's how they fund it from the general fund now without putting it to the voters. You guys are going to hate me by the time I leave here. So, couple nuances. You constantly hear about CO2 and the surface temperature of the Earth, right? And that CO2 is what's driving the surface temperature of the globe up. And that's why they're trying to cut CO2. All they got to do is plant more trees, because that's what trees do. But so what percentage of the atmosphere do you think is CO2?
God, I've heard this before, Troy. It's like less than 1%, is it not?
0.04%.
Right.
Wow.
So any modification of CO2 in the atmosphere would not result in any measurable surface temperature change of the globe. So all the while they're trying to get us to get away from coal, get away from natural gas, take away gas burning stoves, and convert everything to gas, means nothing. Absolutely nothing, because until we can control environmental policy in China and India,
Doesn't do.
It does nothing because there's this thing called the jet stream, and I don't think they've figured out how to cordon off the atmosphere above the United States. China is in the process of building, or already has built in a 5-year cycle, 4,300 coal-fired power plants.
Wow.
While we've reduced our emissions in the United States every year since 1973. So this is not about climate. This is not about emissions. It's about power and control and politics.
Which is happening by fear.
Yeah, we mentioned it quite
Easy
a
to control with fear.
Yeah, and we mentioned it quite a bit, Troy, because we actually got it from you. I think the last time we were all together, we went to MHC over here, and we were learning about their electric vehicles coming out. And somebody asked a question and stuff, and you basically what you just said right now is pollution has no borders. You know, that's all there is to it, and we say it all the
This
time.
big rock spins,
Yeah.
Yeah. 22,500 miles an hour, their wind comes to us.
right?
And India is about to replace China as the largest emitter in the world. They're going to have 400,000 people driving next year that didn't have cars last year. They're about to surpass China.
With a fraction of the emissions controls we have.
None.
None.
They have no filtration. Did you see Beijing during the Olympics? They literally shut down all their power plants for 3 weeks. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen the stadium from the camera.
Oh, wow.
Number one killer in India and China. Now, I'm not saying that emissions don't affect people's health. I'm not ignorant and I'm not that dogmatic. I'm saying we've done an excellent job in this country of constantly improving our air and water. So you know, the dog whistles that they use, oh, you don't want clean air, don't want clean water. That's actually truly false. Right. The best conservationists in the world are hunters. The best people to manage the conservation in fisheries are commercial fishermen. Right. You can take any test you want, you know, and we handle our pollution pretty well. We clean up our messes.
Mm-hmm. There's a great video out there from Neil deGrasse. He has an expert on from NASA and also an expert on from NOAA, the National Atmospheric Administration Association. Mm-hmm. And they discuss how come 2023 was the hottest year in record. And have you watched that? Have you seen that video, Troy?
I have. Their measurement statistics weren't exactly legit there.
No, but I buy their theory. And what I mean by that is we've eliminated so many particulates from the air in our ozone that we're actually letting more sun rays in, mm-hmm. and it's actually warming the surface of the planet because we're actually cleaner now. Yeah. So we're number one, we're doing better by cleaning our particulate matter for sure.
Yep.
But number two, that's causing, and it sounds like I'm, saying, hey, let's put more particulate back in the air. I'm not saying that, but that's one of the leading causes to why 2023 was the hottest year in history is because we've cleaned the air, we've cleaned the ozone,
right?
And now we're fighting that. You put something out in the sun, it gets hot, right? We just put ourselves out in the sun. We have more rays heating our surface,
less particulates for the sun to reflect back in the atmosphere as opposed to hitting the ground.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And over your lifetime, how many times have you heard them just ring the panic bell? Ice caps, polar ice caps melting. Oh, you remember acid rain?
Yeah.
Every prediction they've ever come up with, and I've got a list of like 65 of them. None of them have come true.
Yeah, it never happened. Yeah. Yep.
That's funny. How else is Polis killing us with greenhouse gas emission restrictions? What else is going on?
I mean, that's pretty much the extent of it. This next step of environmental bills, there's another one that I mean, this environmental bill was strictly targeted at oil and gas. So was the other one. It will finish them off, in my opinion. The problem with this one is it attacks everybody other than oil field, right? So they went after transportation first. Now they're after off-road and yellow iron. Just to give you an example, one part in this requires they've got an EPA Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 for yellow iron. So if you consider that a twin-engine scraper is about $1 million, they're requiring retrofits or engine swap outs on these if they don't meet Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. You think housing cost is expensive now? Have them go replace a couple scrapers and do the finished work on a lot before they dig a basement with one of those. You're going to ramp the cost. Those things last forever if they're maintained.
Right.
Now they're forcing replacement on them, just like they did with Class 8 trucks. So now yellow iron is on the menu. I guarantee farming will be the next one on the menu because they're just going down the list of what they think the highest emitters are. Wow. So there's unintended consequences to their attack on oil field. They're just sucking more and more.
I mean,
and more.
farming's already being hit in Oregon, Washington, California. It's just working its way this way.
Yeah, and Brother Dave, you brought it up, just even small business, like these building restrictions that aren't going to meet the regulations.
That's in this bill. It has to do with stationary sources, right?
Right.
And not only are you going to have to report your emissions for your entire fleet, but you're going to have to report the source emissions from your shop. Dry cleaners are going to have to report their source emissions.
Right.
An auto shop is going to have to report their source emissions. And if they go over a certain point, they're going to have to pay a permit fee because they have to stand up a bureaucracy at the Department of Health to collect all this data and put reports and feed the information back to Polis and the legislature. So this is all creating bigger and bigger and more bureaucracy, and the state budget's going to grow and grow and grow. This actually attacks source point emissions of any business. Not only that, but any new business that wants to build anything or add something on has to get a permit from the Department of Health after they have run through a modeling program to determine what more emissions it will put out in the mandate season. It's just insane. They have no concept of the cost of money either.
Yeah, I just pictured Denver becoming a ghost town. Like, nobody wants to be there, except for the bums.
That's what's going to happen because nobody's going to have work.
That's what immigration's doing. There's for the first time in about 11 years, Colorado had a net deficit in population last year. People are starting to leave here too.
Right.
The problem is, if you look behind the curtain, not only did we have a net reduction in population, but we swapped about 400,000 50 to 70-year-olds for 400,000 18 to 35-year-olds who vote 80% Democrat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'm not optimistic that things are going to come back, that there will be balance.
Well, how do we educate people to vote and for other leaders and how to get more Republicans to vote?
I think it's a two-pronged approach, and I think we already got the foundation set.
I hope so.
It's first of all, it's letting voters know that they can get involved more than just once every 2 years and of going in the voting booth and yanking the handle. It's the best defense is a well-educated electorate, and the legislature does a better than average job of hiding what their true intention is behind the words of their legislation. So I think the podcast, and I'm going to be relying on you to help me with content and a voice.
I was going to ask, who's your first guest?
I think Jeff Cummings would do a great job.
I think it should be multiple. I think it should be you. I think it should be Jeff, and you can come pilot it and make sure I don't blow it up. I'm all about delegating. I think it's a two-pronged approach. I think the podcast gets to the people that need to hear it. Just those organizations that we mentioned are probably over 1 million people in Colorado alone. So that's 1/5 of the population. If we can get their attention and homogenize this so they don't have to do all the work themselves and tell them truly, what they're teeing up and what's on the menu that night, and then drive them to the website so they can do their own research, because that's how you become educated about this stuff. Don't just listen to what comes out of my mouth.
Right.
I'm telling you what's about to happen. All the information, including the actual bill titles and the most recent text of the bill titles, will be on the website. Then go read it for themselves.
Sure.
And then if they feel so compelled to do something about it, there will be, like I said, the legislative map there, so they can click on their district where they live. It'll pop up their House member and their Senate member and how to get a hold of them. And they can send them emails and say, don't do this. I'm very opposed to this. And they can go down to the legislature and testify when the bills are being up. But it gives them time to form a cogent argument as to why they're opposed to it, not just that they're opposed to it. I would tell you that legislators, everybody out in JFW land, your single voice talking to a legislator or talking to a committee down at the State House has exponentially 5 to 10 times more weight than any lobbyist that's ever going to walk in there, because you are the constituent. You're not a lobbyist representing a whole bunch of different clients. You are the constituent. You're the voter in the district, and they care more about your voice than they do anybody else's. And that doesn't matter what party they're in. They still care about your voice the most. So that's how you get involved.
So, Troy, one of the big things, because we have to make things easy, we loved what Rich, I can't think of Rich's name with Koga. Well, he was with Koga. What he sent out on that link, able to provide us, click here, put your name, your email. And I know it was a form letter, but when those legislators get 10,000 of those emails.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
That's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
And I think there just needs to be that link there that creates that, and boof, off they go. So it's literally people that are going to be listening to that podcast are going to believe in what our efforts are. They are going to believe in we're trying to save Colorado, that we want not only a better Colorado, but an affordable Colorado. And the rate we're going, it's not affordable now. What's it going to look like in 5 more years? And we have to get these people involved, but it has to be easy for them.
Right. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
It has to be the easy button. Here, this is my favorite website. I'm going to go here, Core Industries, boom, look, they're telling me this isn't good for us. I believe them. Click here, off it goes.
All the things we talk about on the podcast will be what's in front of the legislator
Yes.
via committee or floor vote that week. So there will be not only a link to the actual legislation, but they will be a pre-composed letter, and it'll say if you're opposed to this, and we have a little programming yet to do based on the district maps, but you eventually are going to be able to go click on your district, click on your legislator's email, and then it will pre-populate that written letter saying I'm opposed, and then all they have to do is sign it and hit the send button, and they can send it to their House member and their Senate member. And show up. There will be information there as to when they're taking testimony, which guys that work every day don't have time in the middle of the week to go down to the Capitol. That's a fundamental flaw built into it. Their voices don't get heard.
Absolutely. But they'd get heard clicking the link on the podcast.
If you bury their legislative staff, they hear it.
Yes.
If they get 1,000 emails on something,
They hear it.
then the people saying, "Hey, I need you to pass this thing." Well, no, I don't think so. These are voters.
I guarantee our safety team here did a great job last week, and they hit every employee we have and sent out that link that we got from Koga.
This will kind of be a clearinghouse, kind of a funnel for that.
Yeah.
And nobody's saying you have to, but if it does, if you agree with the position of the organizations, or you agree with the position, I mean, everybody has to make up their own mind whether they support legislation or not, and it's very personal to their own family or their own philosophy, whether they're conservative, independent, in the middle of the road, whatever.
Sure.
But we'll do 90% of the work for them. They'll have to put their name on it and find what legislative district they're in, and they'll have to hit the send button. But it won't be through coercion. All the information will be there. They can educate themselves, and if they feel strongly enough about it, hit that button, and then hit the donate button too. It's only $5 per issue.
Right.
And there isn't any restriction on, for small donor, how often you can do that. So if something really pisses you off, if I've done my job right and it makes you mad enough, hit the donate button, because that we have to pay somebody to populate that website every day almost, because there's new legislation dropping every day.
Every day.
And for me to put that kind of information out there for you to consume in real time, somebody's got to do it, and somebody's got to pay somebody to do it. But also getting enough in the form of a war chest to where we actually do have a voice when I pick up the phone and call Paul Lendine down at the State House and say, "Hey, I need you to kill this bill, and here's why, and here's how many people want this killed." They do it.
Interesting. Any other issues you want to bring up for the discussion before we move on to questions?
I think we covered it. Oh, Troy, I do have a quick question. I don't know if you'll know this, actually. It's my understanding that Chevron is pulling out of California. Have you heard that, or is that?
I haven't heard that. That would be a little surprising to me. Their largest refinery is in San Ramon, California, for fuels and lubes. That's their single largest. They're the largest employer in California. I hadn't heard that.
I had heard that. And is San Ramon towards the north end?
It's in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they would be supplying, there's a military base, I don't even know what base, at the north end of California. And I had heard that if Chevron pulls out, the military base was kind of freaking out, like, what? Where do we get our fuel from?
I haven't heard that. I'll have to do some research.
Interesting. I don't know that any of that's factual. That's why I was asking.
I don't know. That would be a shock because they've got a massive amount of business on the entire West Coast, and you take out an entire supply point. And it may be just politics and what they're doing from an environmental and minimum wage standpoint, what they're doing to them. But most of the people that work at that refinery aren't minimum wage people. They're petroleum engineers and most of them are union. So I hadn't heard that. I'll do some research to get back to you.
Okay.
So Fred Powell had a question. He wants to know what kind of liners will we use on the super dumps that can withstand the hot asphalt?
Good question. I saw Freddie this morning. So Freddie, it's called Matrox is the name of the liner. It's made by Rochling, where we buy all the other liners that we have in all of our trailers. It is just a different chemical compound that's designed still with the silica form to release the hot asphalt, but also a much higher melting point. It's good to up to 400 degrees. The average asphalt coming out of most asphalt plants are about 195 degrees. So we're well within what our requirements are or needs are for a plastic liner. Kind of sounds impossible, but it's not. So.
He also wanted to know, does JFW have any plans on getting more bulking contracts to keep the blower trucks busy?
Right. He again, Simon this morning, and he brought up, we were running some stuff last year for flash fill until we got too busy, and then Signature Stone. I think Signature Stone we started with and kind of made a mistake on our end, right? And then we had to work off some of the debt up there. And Jim and I truly believe after that happened, we just basically lost that. Like they won't give us another chance type scenario.
Right.
Don't know whether that's true or not, but nothing else has come to fruition since we paid that bill off. That was kind of a hiccup there. It happened. Nothing we can do about it, but that's how it feels.
They didn't feel like our people, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
No, it was a difficult situation, and like Dave said, we did pay that off. They said the plant was down for a certain amount of time and what it cost them and stuff like that, and we did the right thing, stepped up and replaced that cost.
Yep.
By working the bill off, and I think they used us because we made a mistake. So you're right, Jam. I don't know if they were really our people or not, but when I seen that question too. We've been trying really hard in the background to come up with other work all over the place.
Everywhere for everything.
This isn't, our customers are slow. It's Dave's mentioned, several times that, we hear this is an election year, I'm going to wait and see what happens. I don't think we've really felt that over the last, 4 or 5 elections, really.
At least, Jim, it's been 15 years.
Yeah, we've just trucked right along.
Right.
This truly feels like that saying. This feels like an election year. Everything that Troy just said about selling his business, that's here and now. And it's affecting everything, all sorts of businesses. So, all the stuff with the, CDOT and things like that. I think it's slow everywhere. And I think that's, we have to buckle down. We have to continue to look. And so just to reassure everybody, and Freddie's question is, we're trying all the time. We just got signed up with Amazon for a deal to hostel trailers in and out of the yard. Maybe we can do that, at night. Maybe we can do it at day. Maybe we can do whatever. There's nothing is stopped in our background to try to facilitate us having more work, you guys. We have to do that to survive. We have the responsibility of all of you guys out there and the responsibilities that me and Dave's taken on. Troy mentioned it to grow. There's a lot of debt. There's a lot of debt in the background, and there is because of the price of our trucks and that kind of stuff. So nothing ever stops here. It just may not look like it up front. We've mentioned a lot of times, Jam and Super Dave, that this is the slow time of year. We're slow, but we've been more busy in the office and in the background than we ever have been.
Right.
Been kind of crazy.
And just so you know, Freddie, we tried really hard putting a deal together with on the Gross Reservoir Dam project with Kiewit
Kiewit
Western, and they wound up finally contracting with TransPro, but the hiccup on that was we thought we could pull it off if the material was going to come out of CMEX, and we would be able to have trucks pull loads out of CMEX, drop them at their drop yard, then have blower trucks take it out of the drop yard there at 93 and 72 up to the dam and blow off. I mean, we had it all lined out. And then they switched at last minute to Wholesome Florence. That quadrupled the haul on that.
That's some trucking.
Yeah. We don't have the trailers and we don't have the trucks. And that's
Or the hours of service.
Yeah, yeah. That's the reason for the storage yard up there, Troy, was we were just going to drop, start now, have a bunch of trailers dropped. Maybe, at that distance, we probably had to have 40 or 50 trailers sitting there with product on them,
right?
Just to keep, when they do their big pours up there. So, yeah, it became.
And that's not to say that we might not get some of that.
Yeah, if they need help,
right?
We put our name out there.
Pretty tough to me I don't care how big TransPro says they are, to cover that is going to be something to watch.
Yep.
So,
No doubt.
And the flip side of that is, like in our business, when somebody commits to something large like that, especially if they're your competitor, then the next opportunity down the line, they won't have the manpower or the trailers to cover it. So
exactly
9 out of 10 times, if you lose something big, it presents an opportunity in the next thing that comes down the line.
Right. Absolutely.
It's been a long time ago, but we did the same thing with DIA. Everybody was like talking about DIA. Oh, you're going to go get some business out there? You're going to get some contracts? We basically stayed away and soaked up everything that everybody ran out there to do. And we had all this stuff left that we just, picked through. It was awesome.
And the single source big volume entities usually cost you more in manpower and babysitting than 10 accounts that really aren't that high in maintenance that you can give a little bit more personal service to anyway.
Yeah, volume's not always the best.
No, volume just means cash flow. It doesn't mean profit.
Yep.
Got a text from Jack Oquendo Mejia. He says, "Good morning, Jam. Just remember today is podcast day. And if I have a question for you guys, if it's not too late, does wind affect your fuel efficiency? And just FYI, the Western Star only gave me 5.9 miles per gallon tops on the 2 trips I went to Kansas. 0043 out, high road up."
Good question, Jack. So, of course, wind does affect your fuel efficiency, right? If you're pushing a headwind, you're going to burn more fuel. Got a tailwind, you're going to burn less fuel. I mean, that's pretty easy math there. But I think one of the biggest things we're going to fight with those 5 Western Stars, and the reason we tried them, are the X12 Cummins, which is just a 12-liter engine. The rest of our fleet is a 13-liter engine. Now, same horsepower, little less torque. It's only 100 foot-pounds, 150 foot-pounds less torque. But I don't think we're going to see the fuel mileage out of those Cummins engines. I'm actually thrilled to hear he got 5.9. That puts a smile on my face because the Cummins historically have been nowhere near what our pack car engines are fuel mileage wise.
All I heard is bigger is better. So that's basically what I heard there.
Well, it's not when you're burning 1.5 gallons more per mile of fuel, right?
5 years ago,
they're
I'd have
not.
said, burn all you want, we'll bring you more.
No kidding, Troy. Yeah, just to touch on that.
Troy looks out the window. It's a nice windy day out.
Yeah, that's more fuel.
You guys got your sails up?
Right? If it's windy, we don't have a brown cloud. It's even better to smile.
Yeah, I don't even know if I looked down or checked it, but it would have been interesting, for everybody to know. We were able to go back to Eaton Transmission Proving Ground last week, and Dave and me both got to drive one of their custom. I'm going to say custom made trucks because they ordered it with certain stuff to be able to test their transmissions. But it was loaded, grossed out at 160,000 pounds. And that was for both me and Dave, that was the heaviest load we've hauled, or the amount of weight we've hauled is 160,000 pounds. But to take that truck, we got to race it on an oval. We got to take it off road. We got to do all that stuff. It even came with had the new 18 speed in it. Endurance, like, our 12 speeds, but the new 18 speed came with a set of boxes and all that kind of stuff. But it would have been interesting what the fuel mileage was on that truck. Cause like you said, bigger's better, Jim. It was the big Cummins. It was the performance. It was all A+ to be able to pick that up. And then in Michigan, they're able to pull an A train. Is that what they were calling it, Dave? Cause they were able to go up to 140,000, I think, in Michigan. is what they're
I just
permitted
know
to
there's
run.
axles all over that trailer.
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
never
yeah.
did count.
Yeah.
And like you said, even at 160,000 pounds, he still had some axles that were up.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
were two
exactly
axles
on
that
the
were
trailer.
up on that
Yeah.
trailer,
Yeah.
and the configuration of it, the axles were all over the place. It was crazy, right?
Yeah, it had
but I tell you what,
50,000 on the drives.
that transmission and that combination in that truck was pretty incredible, Troy. We were able to take, it was a brand new, they spec'd it, a brand new W990 Kenworth, right? 160,000 pounds. You pull up, they build a hill because everything's flat back there in Michigan. So they're proving grounds. They've built a hill, right? Paved it, guardrails both sides. One side's 6%, the other side's 12%. You pull up that 6%, there's a white line in the middle of that hill. You stop, middle of that hill, 160,000 pounds. You let off the brake, the urge to move engages, and that truck just takes off up the
Just
hill.
starts torque loading and applying clutch.
Yep.
Just goes, buddy. And it's amazing. Grabs a gear, shifts on up that hill. It was pretty incredible. And then the engine brake works so well dropping down the other side. You actually have to take it. Well, on that one, I take it back. That one was all three heads going down the hill, but it held itself right there at 160,000 pounds. It was mind-boggling.
Pretty impressive.
Put a smile
technology.
on your face as a driver and realizing the mass of that load. I mean, 160,000 pounds.
Extra brake where you don't have to touch the pedal is always a beautiful thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been to the one in Indy when they first came out with the automatic transmissions.
Allison?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their issue was because we do a lot of bobtail stuff, so they had that steep hill.
Yes.
And there was no automatic roll stop brake.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So you had to stay engaged with the throttle just to keep it engaged.
2 foot.
You actually stopped it with the gas pedal.
Oh, wow.
You
Yeah.
never used the
Wow.
brake. You just stopped it and then just leaned on it a little harder to get it going. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, because if we get rolling back on a liquid load,
Right.
all the fuel's up on top of the heads, and if you hit that brake too hard,
Yeah.
Right.
it's gonna
Yeah.
flip on its lid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. Tips and tricks. Actually, before I do that, I meant to give one more shout out to the girls. We set up the podcast last night because we got an early start and they left us a nice little have a great podcast note. So
That's awesome.
I don't know
Love
if that was
note, man.
Amber, Joanne, or
Yeah, that's awesome.
pretty cool. All right, tips and tricks from Ray Davis. How to straighten your trailer when you have no room in front of your tractor. Sometimes we cannot get perfectly straight due to the lack of room in front of you. Sometimes your tractor is cocked a little and it's not perfectly straight. This is okay. If your trailer is cocked to the left, turn your steering wheel all the way to the left. Have your pinch valve or trailer locked and the tractor brakes released and your steering wheel turns all the way to the left. When you go up with your trailer, the tractor gets pulled back to your trailer. Sorry about that. It will start to straighten out your tractor. When the material starts to come out, lock your tractor release. Wow. Should have proofread this. When the material starts to come out, lock your tractor release, your pinch valve, or the trailer brake and bring your trailer to you. You can then decide if you need to go back out to the left or you can go to the right to continue on making that turn. You can turn your wheel all the way to the right when pulling forward nice and easy, and that pile will be straight to get that little bit of material completely out. Also, remember when coming down, you'll still need room in front of you when your truck is stretching itself back out. If there is no room in front of you, you can always turn your steering wheel all the way to whatever way you're turning and start to make that turn as the trailer is coming down. Does everybody get that? Makes sense to me.
Yeah, Ray
Yeah.
came up. Yeah, Ray
Yeah.
came up and kind of chatted with me about it the other day, and I thought to myself, I've turned the wheel the right direction I want to go on the way down more often than not. Just kind of pointed the tractor at the the
Start
right
heading
angle and
that
stuff
way.
like it was a good discussion I had with Ray. There's a lot of good points. It's it's kind of hard to understand that as it's going up, your tractor's shortening or your tractor and trailer shortening, so steer it, and as it comes down, it's going to lengthen back out. Steer it that other way.
Right.
You
You
know,
do both. Steer
Yeah.
it when you're going up and then steer it again as it's coming down. And you can change the direction of that tractor a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll probably have to have jamming races because if I say it on there, but through the years, and it comes with a lot of options as far as looking, but we've had to leave our trailers in the air. Have you guys all not to be short enough to get out of someplace. And I'm not talking driving around with the trailer in the air and not everything above, looking at power lines and that kind of stuff. But there's just so many interesting tricks, that you can do to make yourself so successful in what we do. And there's a time and place for everything. Right. It's really is a neat industry. I mean, I'm sure it's the same thing with fuel hauling or oil and all that kind of stuff. When you learn the tricks, it's just cool. You make yourself look damn good.
Jim,
I would
back in the
say-
day, our yard used to be so small, we'd park the rock trailers against the Denver truck and trailer fence because to fit them in there, you had to raise the trailer up, open the gate so you didn't tear off the mud flaps, and back in with the trailer in the air.
Yep.
I was going to say we're probably one of the only industries that we could actually shorten ourselves up.
Yeah, shorten ourselves. Yeah, yeah. With the trailers just as long, you can bring the tandems up on on a van trailer or something, Jam. But to shorten your whole, go from a 35-foot trailer to I don't even know what it's 24.
Probably.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Trainer tips. Let's help out the drivers and mechanics with making sure yourself and your neighbors don't have hoses rubbing on deck plates. The weather is warming up, and them old bungees are weather cracked and don't have that strong stretch like Jam anymore. We need to replace them and get them hoses off them decks so we're not rubbing holes in them. Hope all is well with the JFW family, friends, and listeners. Remember, safety has no blind spot. Look and lean. Sit up in your stool. Don't be a fool. Much love and respect always. The Black Sheep, 0013.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Appreciate that.
Yeah, good job, Ray.
I wanted to add something to it too. Last week, one of the guys called in with a check engine, and if you're not sure, we try to educate on the podcast. We've done the stuff with JR in the room once you're hired. We have Kendrick doing the stuff. You're riding with your trailer. Try to be educated if you're not. Or educate yourself if you're not finding out what like a check engine light was. The conversation between the driver and the shop was a pretty difficult one. And I think the shop can help by going, hey, it's okay. I can have you drive it in. This is what the computer's showing. Instead, the shop just said, hey, go ahead and bring it in, which makes the driver feel safe. But why am I having you bring it in? Do you have 4 hours till it derates possibly? You should be okay because, that's for a, death pump situation or something like that. And we'll get you in here. And then the driver, hey, I got a orange check engine light, or I got a red check engine light, or, the comment was, hey, it's just a box end open wrench. Well, that's not helpful in the situation. And I know we talk about it a lot, but I just wanted to bring it up that we can help both departments out, help each other be better if we communicate about what's really going on.
Also, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, after you.
I just wanted to add to that because we also had to have a truck towed last Friday that we'd found out the driver had been driving with the red check engine light on for 4 hours. That's a default. You know what I mean? We wouldn't have had to have that truck towed if they'd have called in and said, hey, I got a red check engine light.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Red
we
is
ran
bad.
it for 4 hours, and pretty soon the truck was like, I'm done. We couldn't go out there with a laptop, do the forced SCR reset. We had to have it towed, and it's frustrating. Yeah. I know it's frustrating for them, but what's more frustrating, having to bring it in because you got a check engine light or having to sit there for an hour and a half waiting for a tow?
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm talking about, the educational part of it, Dave, is, so many drivers call in, hey, I have a check engine light. We just go ahead, you're good to drive, or just keep going. That's not, well, how long can I keep going? Or can I keep going?
Yeah.
If I have a check engine light staring me in the face, I'm like, I'm in trouble.
Right.
What's going on? Something's wrong with the truck. I want to figure it out.
Sure.
So I think that's exactly it, Dave. There should be a little more, it's fine. You don't have a derate, or, I have you at 4 hours. You got 2 hours left in your day,
right.
Whatever it might be. Or the not calling is what you're saying,
right.
Of going, hey, you got a check engine light. I'm not going to do anything about it because everybody calls in and they tell them to just keep running it. Mm-hmm. That may not be your case.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're a little numb to that check engine light because it's the boy crying wolf.
Yeah.
But that red light, that's
a
different story.
That's bad.
You got to still maintain that communication.
Yeah.
And anyone that calls in with that red check engine light, we immediately look at the diagnostics on that truck. Because with Samsara, we have a way better diagnostics communication than through PACCAR Logistics or Solutions.
And we actually have them both. Right, Dave?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can look on there, but the shop is doing an amazing job. They can look at it and go, oh yeah, you'll be fine the rest of the day. Write it up tonight when you get in. We'll take a look at it. Or not, where are you? Get that load off and bring it in. Or we've had a few cases where it's like, no, you need to come here now. Yeah. That truck's going to shut off. We have 30 minutes and you need to get your butt in here.
Yeah. Also, as a driver, try to think about what's going on. We had a case this past week. One of the tarps was broken. It was actually freewheeling. So they were able to. Did you hear that?
No, Jam. I'm excited to hear it.
Oh yeah. So had a tarp problem up north. They were able to close the tarp by hand.
Very cool.
And then they were going to come down here to get the tarp fixed.
Yeah.
Deadhead. So, think about that. If you're able to close it, well, you could also freewheel it to open it.
Right.
At least go get loaded.
Yeah.
And then bring a load down.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's what they ended up doing. But as a driver, the shop, when they hear something's broken, their job is fixing. Well,
right.
come on by. We'll get it fixed.
Right.
As a driver, your job is to haul loads. Well, let me find a load to bring back.
Can I find a load and bring it in?
Yeah. And keep in mind, dispatch is super busy. They might have had 100 things going on in that moment.
And didn't hear
it. So you got to also keep in mind what's best for you and what's best for JFW.
What's best for the house, right?
Yeah. And there's all those tricks to that. If your tarp doesn't, you could be switched to rock. Rock's not going to blow out. I know it needs to be tarped,
right?
But switch it to rock. Take 25 tons, so it's down in the trailer.
Right.
Run down here with the tarp open.
And that's what we did. We had them get loaded. We didn't have them climb back in to close the tarp. It was just like, go get some rock.
Yeah.
You're gonna be fine.
Yeah. Now sand coming down here at 28 tons. No, let's not do that. Let's do the best practices.
Absolutely. Soup, you want to hit us with that high road hauling?
I'd love to. So there's a little story that sources from my grandson's football game last weekend. So he was part of the Colorado Youth Football League All-Star Game. He represented the 5th grade. Kids from all over the state play in this tournament every year. So he's lucky. He's been actually chosen for an All-Star the last 2 years. And last year, his team won what they call the Super Bowl. And this year, they weren't so lucky. So it was kind of tough, but there's a lesson to be learned. You can turn a loss into a gain. If you're going to lose, and you are, because everyone does, then why not turn it into a gain? How do you do that? By learning from it. Nelson Mandela once said, "I never lose, I only learn." A loss isn't totally a loss if you learn something as a result of it. Your losses can come to define you if you let them. If you stay where a loss leaves you, that eventually can get you stuck there. But know this, your choices will begin to declare you, and you can choose, change, grow, and learn from your losses. That, of course, is not necessarily easy. A favorite Peanut comic strip, Charlie Brown walks away from Lucy after a baseball game, head down, totally dejected. Another ball game lost. Good grief, Charlie moans. I get tired of losing. Everything I do, I lose. Look at it this way, Charlie Brown, Lucy replies, and you can just hear her saying it too. We learn more from losing than we do from winning, Charlie Brown. Well, that makes me the smartest person in the world, replies Charlie Brown. It's a good thought, but not everyone learns from losses. A loss doesn't turn into a lesson unless we work hard to make it so. Losing gives us an opportunity to learn, but many people don't seize it. And when they don't, losing really hurts. Learning is not easy during down times because it requires us to do things that are not natural. It's hard to smile when we're not happy. It's difficult to positively respond when numb with defeat. It takes discipline to do the right thing when everything goes wrong. How can we be emotionally strong when we are emotionally exhausted? How will we face others when we are humiliated? How do we get back up when we are continually knocked down? St. Ignatius Loyola, one of the world's greatest educators, once said that we learn only when we are ready to learn. All the boys on that team were heartbroken over the loss, and there were tears everywhere. That's okay. You have to let your emotions out, feel the emotions, just like you do when you win the game. Hopefully the boys realize that they are all all-stars and they played a great game. And just because they came up short in that one game doesn't define their effort, their experience, or their character. They will have many more experiences in life that will come up short of their expectations. They need to learn from the experience, whatever it may be, and use it to their advantage the next time around. It's their time to learn. And I just love this quote. I found it, of course, I always look through, the different quote web pages and stuff. But man, does it line up with this little story here. Winston Churchill said, "I am always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught."
Ooh,
Isn't that true?
That is so great.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, good deals. It was a good weekend up at CU last weekend.
Nice.
No bet.
You had good weather Saturday for it too, Dave. I mean, it was
It was, yeah.
a perfect. I don't want to
Yeah.
call it a spring day because it wasn't quite spring yet, but
Yeah.
yeah.
This is quite an organization. Last year we had it at Dove Valley. And they bring all these little kids, 4th, 5th, 6th graders, all the way up to when they start high school football. But this year it was up at CU, and that was really cool.
I like that both your grandkids are achievers. They excel. Cheerleading
The
and
two
football.
older ones will have to wait on the 2 younger ones.
There
But
you
yeah. Yep.
All right. Final thoughts, everybody?
I'll jump in here with Troy being here and Dave's bug that's bit him and the conversation we've had and everything, and I brought it up before, and I just think we should hear this on a regular basis, and I believe it's true, and the percentages might be flawed a little bit, but so I think we should all hear this on a regular basis. You woke up this morning in the United States of America. Simply because you are here, you're already more blessed than 99% of all the people in the world who ever lived. Because you woke up here in a country that is founded on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you have more opportunities than most people on the planet. What a great way to start the day. And I think we should say that more, and I think we should believe in that part. And we have the ability to make changes, and that's part of the liberty that we have.
We can save Colorado.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess I'll just jump on the back of that, Jim. It's such a great segue. I didn't write anything down. Just to take that and morph that to what we're talking about doing, what Troy's talking about starting with between core industries, creating core essentials, all of the things that's going on with Colorado. I want to save Colorado. I feel like we're about to lose it. We're going to lose it for the middle class, for the below middle class. I don't even know where to start. And we need people engaged. We need people to listen. We need people to hear. And really, they don't need to do much. You know what I mean? They just need to hear it, understand it, and go, oh, I don't want to let that happen. Click here. Do this. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to your friend. Talk to your family. Talk to your kids. Talk to your parents. Be engaged a little bit. Talk to your neighbor. Anybody you know. If you're out mowing the lawn, talk to the neighbor when he shows up going, hey, have you heard about this bill they're trying to pass? Do you know anything about that? It's amazing the majority of people don't. I feel so ignorant on some of the stuff I've learned in the last year or two, that Colorado creates on average 400 new laws a year. I've mentioned this a dozen times now on the podcast, and it's not good. That does nothing but raise your taxes. The cost of living is already out of control. The government is not helping us, right? And I ask and beg and plead for everyone to get involved. It doesn't take much. It's a pretty small step. Talk about it. Be aware of it. I bet you talk to your kids about not doing drugs. You need to talk about you need to talk to anyone you know about what our government's doing to us. And I think it's important, especially our Colorado government. So thanks, everybody.
Soup, you got anything else?
Nope.
No. Troy?
Yeah, I'll just touch on what Dave said. We constantly hear that there's so many problems in our country, and if you listen to the political messaging, and it doesn't matter what side you're listening to, ultimately it gets down to you have to seek and find out your own truth. Don't just listen to information from one source. Do your research. Listen to 2 different sources, and when the truth departs from one narrative, that's where you start digging. My ultimate purity test that keeps me optimistic every time I get out of bed, my feet hit the floor in the morning, is if you did one simple test to determine whether this was truly the greatest country in the world or not, and the best organization for living under it, was, if you truly did build a wall around the country, would there be a line to get in or a line to get out? That's a black and white, period. You know, every country has problems. The old saying is, our system of government is a democratic republic. It's not the best in the world, but it's the best that's been come up with so far.
Oh.
Everything has flaws. There's always room for improvement. But education is probably the single most important thing you can do. We'll help as much as we possibly can. Those of us that have a little bit more time to get in the weeds with legislation and the intent of legislation and the unintended consequences, that's kind of what we're embarking on and trying to get done, is to do that filtering for you. But the exact content will be presented for you to read word for word. And if it doesn't line up, what we said it means versus what the words say, we'll always be there to answer questions. So this is a participation event, and if you don't participate, we are going to lose this state.
Absolutely.
Well, Troy, I want to thank you for coming on. You did a great job. I was a little weary of some more politics, but I was captivated by the things you've had to say. Definitely learned a lot, and we wish you the best in your podcast.
Thanks for the invitation.
And we'll definitely help get that out there for you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Channel 23 podcast. Hit that follow button. Also, don't forget to go back and listen to episode 72 to help find Amber's mom. Links to her story will be in today's notes as well. Say the creed and get on out.
I want to jump in there right quick, Jam.
Let's go.
I mean, her daughter, Mariana, wrote a new article on that.
Yeah, I put that in last week.
And it was, did you read it? Did you get a chance to read it?
I read it. I didn't read it on a podcast.
Right. No, I understand that. But I mean, that is just such a captivating and heart-wrenching situation. I mean, Troy, just to catch up to speed, Amber, who works here, she worked here about 6 months or almost a year before we realized her mom went missing 7 years ago in Lochbuie. And Troy, I didn't realize how many law enforcement people we knew or had contact with in different departments, different agencies, and no one is helping investigate this. And it's a crime that happened that to us points clearly to the husband and the son, and we can't get anyone to do anything about it. And CBI is involved, and there's a lot of bad guys. You talk to any of the police friends that I have in agencies, and they're like, man, this smells like a fish, and those two are the fish. But we can't cross these lines, and just all sorts of
Jurisdictional excuses?
just all sorts of stuff, yeah. Troy. It's unbelievable. And Lochbuie, unfortunately, they basically have one officer. She was fired from Denver, so that tells you the level of her bar, right?
Yeah.
And,
Well, you know who has jurisdiction of the whole state?
yeah, I mean, we haven't tried anyone from the State Patrol yet.
I'm pretty
because-
tight with Chief Packard. I will mention it.
I
Give me the
don't know-
information.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'll be right here on the podcast when you receive it. There's a link to it. So you get all the information right there, buddy. So anyway, her daughter, Mariana, wrote kind of an update of what's going on, and she did her point of view. She did Amber's point of view, and kind of just put everything in perspective, and we've tried to get involved and help. We've had her on the podcast, dedicated a whole podcast to it. She's been on several Colorado missing podcasts, and it's gut-wrenching. It's hard to swallow, and I know if it were any of our parents, we probably wouldn't be as strong, or it would be as tough. It would be hard to be as strong as Amber is through this. So I give her credit. So
Yeah. And how old is Mariana? Do you remember, Dave?
a teenager. She's 12.
I want to
13.
say her two kids are really close to the age of my daughter Jennifer's kids. I think she's like 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reason I'm it's a well written
It is.
letter.
It
For
is.
that age,
Yeah.
how responsible and mature. So
right.
it is
Well
it
done.
is well done. Well
Yeah.
done.
Yep.
And since I think we got a little bit more time here, I just want to ask Troy, or kind of put you on the spot a little bit, and I don't know if you can do it for a subject coming up because this is an election year for your podcast, but through, whether it's, wives or friends or family or everybody, I continually hear, me and Dave's discussed it, our issue of the two presidential candidates, and I don't want to vote for either one of them, and everybody has their reasons for different things. And you just touched upon it, is try to go out and educate yourself, because the only way I can get through the mud of, listen to Biden that can barely talk, or to listen to Trump that, is so full of himself, but is which person is going to be the best for the country. And maybe you can do a short segment in your podcast about that, about some of the facts and the education on who is going to be best for our country. Don't consider the men. Consider what one of those two can do for our country, because that's what we need, is help with our country, and who will be the best that way. So, and I don't know, because I know you want to stick to the Colorado kind of.
Not necessarily.
Thing,
I'm kind of plugged in at the federal level because we've dealt with the ATA and National Highway Freight Program that needs some work. Clean Air Act needs opened up and some work. So I've had some exposure at the federal level too, and that is a very personal decision. Mm-hmm. Any vote you take is a very personal decision, but to take the liberty of expressing how I look at it is, unfortunately, the majority of the presidential elections that I participated in my life were choosing the lesser of two evils. I have very rarely ever voted for a president. Reagan was absolutely one I voted for. He was also my commander-in-chief at the time, so it worked.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's everybody's got personalities. Everybody has mistakes and demons in the closet. Nobody's perfect. I usually place politicians somewhere between a used car salesman and a ambulance chasing attorney. So I don't give them any higher expectations than that anyway. But I don't view it as a popularity contest. I view it as a job interview. Now, I'll caveat that I don't even know if Biden's going to be the candidate, because crazy things can happen at the Democratic National Convention with superdelegates. And if you remember what happened between Bernie and Hillary, shenanigans can be played there.
Right.
And all of those delegates that Biden has earned can just be gifted to someone. It really depends on probably his popularity numbers when the convention is in Chicago in August.
Right.
So we don't know. We do know that Trump's the Republican nominee. And this is one of the few times that I think the electorate has the ability to compare side by side of all the points that matter to you. Mm-hmm. National defense, immigration, budgetary,
education,
education, reproductive rights, go down the list, and whatever listing that you rank them at, and compare the two, because both of them have recent history. You can side by side compare, which has very rarely ever been done.
Absolutely.
Right? So you can do a pro and con side by side comparison. You list them in whatever priority you believe are the most important to you, and then compare the job performance on both. It's never a one. I don't know anybody that's done any research that only comes down to a one issue voter. Hopefully I'm not offending anybody, but that's pretty shallow, because our world and our country and our economy is very complex and very interrelated.
Absolutely.
Crime is related to district attorneys, related to state laws, related to statute of limitations, is related to probation, is related to the economy, and they're all interconnected, and they're all interconnected by the dollar. So, for me, I got, as you grow older, your priorities change too. But I do not ever perceive an election as a popularity contest. They'll try to make it be that because some are more charismatic than others. But ultimately, it comes down to here's the requirements of the job. Can you do them or not? And what's your position on them? And if that fits with your narrative, then I would suggest getting a little bit more clinical than emotional about the decision.
Put your head in it, not your heart.
That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like that.
Yeah. All right. Creed time?
Let's do it.
All righty.
Together we face and overcome all that stands before us.
Together we are accident-free. Together we joyfully create honest value for those we serve. Together we celebrate our differences and respect those with whom we work. Together we are accountable for our words and our actions. And together we are the JFW family.
All right, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Troy.
Thanks for having me.
I see those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-trucking down the road. Those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-looking for another load. Well, it's a family tradition, any Rocky Mountain day. Our fathers before us showed us the way. We work for asphalt cowboys and concrete kings, but that's never been a problem, 'cause we got diesel in our veins. We've got diesel in our veins. I see those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-trucking down the road. Those big, bright, shiny red trucks just looking for another load. I hear there's a couple million tons to move. I see them everywhere. So you best get out their way and watch that sand and gravel disappear. There's another run to make. We gotta get it there on time. And we got what it takes to lay it all out on the line. We'll lay it all out on the line. I see those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-trucking down the road. Those big, bright, shiny red trucks just looking for another load. Those big, bright, shiny red trucks got the best drivers in town. They got all the tools they need to keep that hammer down. When they hit them scales, they won't need to dodge them, won't need to duck them. They just keep that hammer down, and they keep that diesel trucking. Keep that hammer down, and keep that diesel trucking. I see those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-trucking down the road. Those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-looking for another load. They just keep them doors a-closed, keep them butts in their seats, 'cause those customers are calling, and those red trucks can't be beat. They've gotta put the hammer down and pick up another load. Get it off the ground, keep them eyes open and on the road. Keep them eyes open on the road. I see those big, bright, shiny red trucks just a-trucking down the road. Those big, bright, shiny red trucks just looking for another load. Breaker 23, anybody got a copy on that Channel 23 podcast? Welcome, and thanks for listening.